Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Draw. This is episode 2 of this new podcast with me, Flagrant Triggers, wherever he is on your screen right now, and Crash Mondo, also wherever he is on the screen right now. This being episode 2, if you watched last week, you would have saw a little bit of an intro about who we are, where we know each other from. We know each other from Chrissy Mayer's community, especially. And this is going to be a podcast where we just get together weekly and just talk about things happening in the world and getting to know each other and just a new friendship between us, as well as a friendship between you. So if you are watching, hit subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you for coming back. Hope you enjoy the chats and hope you enjoy everything here. And don't forget, Flagrant Triggers makes merch. So go to his website. Should be a link in the description, and buy some merch. He's got merch for himself. He's also got merch for many people from multiple communities that you probably already watch and know. And they're great shirts. They're soft, they're comfortable, and they're beautiful. So go and buy some today and hit like, smash the plussy, whatever you want to do, whatever you like to do. And please do leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on things. And let us know what you like to see on the channel, what you like us to talk about, and your thoughts on things we are talking about. It's so important. You are part of this new venture, this new journey with us. So please do let us know, join the community, and, get to know us as well as us getting to know each other. So, yeah. Thank you for coming by. Let's get into this. What do you guys say? Should we start with some stuff? You want to say hi, Flagrant? What do you want to say to people?
Well, hey, chat. How's everybody doing? It looks like I'm moving when actually I'm just compiling all of the crap that's been in my house and slowly sifting through old toys and clothes and a lot of mostly baby stuff. So, yeah, I did a dinner yesterday, cooked here, and had some people over and had to kind of compile everything, but getting through that. Hopefully the holidays were good for everybody. I ate what I could. Some I, of course, cooked the best dinner because I'm a fairly good cook, even though I'm a dad cook. But yeah, other than that, I'm ready to get into this first topic. Crash, how are you doing?
Crash, yeah, let's go with Crash Sauce. What's going on?
Oh,
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here, and I mean, I'll go ahead and hard segue us in. Speaking of friendships, and hoping that our friendship never goes down the route that this one did.
That was a great segue, by the way. That was great.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm sure many people watching this will have probably come across Adam Crigler's, call it a manifesto, perhaps, telling his side of the story of how things kind of broke up with him and Timcast. And then, of course, Tim has also given his response, which I'll admit I have not gotten all the way through quite yet.
I did.
So Fealty and Flagrant will have to kind of fill me in a bit on what he had to say, because I was watching it and Tim, from what I watched so far, was giving a lot of more prep of how everything built up, and I didn't quite get to the climax of the story.
Well, you watched the Kriegler's, right?
I did watch all of Crigler's. I watched the 2 hours of all of his explanation and all of his little stories that went into it.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the last 4 or 5 minutes that was on it?
I did not. So I don't know what other revelation happened at the very end. I didn't even realize he
actually showed up. Tim was in his chat. He gave a few super chats to Adam, and Adam kind of was like, "You didn't watch my video," nah, and left. He actually had a chance to talk with Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Since Tim was there and could have confronted him and was basically like, well, I've already been here for 6.5 hours. You clearly didn't watch my video, basically, and just literally just close the stream down pretty much. After there's a mini back and forth between him and Tim being in the chat, and Adam was just not happy with what Tim was saying pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
To break it down for the people who haven't watched it, Adam basically.
Oh yeah, shouldn't we? Yeah, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I guess we should give a breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it, Flagrant.
So Adam went over the origin story of Timcast and how he and Tim used to be friends or ran into each other earlier in life. Then weren't super close, but Tim was up and coming. He had done the Occupy stuff. He'd gotten his golden, what Tim calls his golden handcuffs. Was it Viacom?
No, it was.
No,
Is
Fusion.
it ABC? Yeah,
Wasn't
Fusion.
Fusion. Yeah. That's when they started Vice. Um, and they originally Timcast apparently was supposed to happen way before, but the execs kind of shot it down. And were like, we don't really see this going anywhere. So then a couple years passed. They're in and out. Adam had moved back. Him and his current wife were living somewhere, and she was getting ready to take a job as like a master dive instructor. And Tim's like, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing again." And so Adam talked about how they had to uproot again because apparently this is the second time that he'd had to move everyone, or well, everyone, him and his wife. And then they
He
started
whined that they had to move again.
yeah.
I think that's how we should explain Adam Kriegler's stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I've definitely come to a conclusion on because for a long time Adam refused to talk about it. Tim didn't talk about it.
Oh,
I
should
think,
we actually say our biases on this one and be kind of lefty on it, like where we're kind of leaning on this this thingy mabobby?
yeah, why not? I mean, to me, especially after hearing Tim's response, I'm definitely leaning with Tim because it seems
Okay.
like yes, Tim is very pragmatic and he's been thrown very harshly into the deep waters of the corporate world, but I don't see him as saying the things he did in a disingenuous fashion. I think Adam took things pretty emotionally, didn't want to put in the same kind of work, which is he admitted like Tim is a workaholic. He busted his ass for everything he's got. He keeps grinding. He's always and Tim talks about it too, how he gets up like 6:30 and he goes until 12 o'clock at night. And it just it seems like Adam didn't like some of the way things were going and kind of gave him a sour impression. And it seemed like he wanted more than he was putting in. And then whenever that came into question, which Tim kind of hashed out too, but Adam, it seems like he didn't want to put in the same amount of work. And then some of the things he said about Tim's family life and stuff like that, it's like some of it was unnecessary, I believe, 100%. The only thing that I would wonder about a little bit more is the whole Lydia situation because that did seem a little odd. But then again, I don't think Tim's really going to delve into that because Tim doesn't like getting into personal drama stuff. But yeah, Adam, yeah, Adam seems like he's had a lot of stuff handed to him, and he just kind of got lucky and rode some coattails. Which, don't get me wrong,
That's so apropos to use as a phrase with Adam since his jacket was stolen.
right. Um, yeah, I mean, Adam's doing his own thing now, and it's not a massive blow out of the water like Timcast, but I don't think he's actually had to grind that hard for anything either. Just given the backstories that we know on each of these guys.
Crash, what is your bias and some thoughts?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm considering myself in the
Actually,
middle.
well, what's your bias without seeing the full Timcast video? Because I do think that if you did watch the full, if you had the chance to watch it, I'm sure you will before next week, so we could do like a re-up on your thoughts. But you know,
Yeah, I do want to get to the because I didn't even realize that I didn't expect a response. Rather, as because this is Saturday. He doesn't usually do Saturday streams.
and he was on vacation,
Right. So, and when you had posted that, I ended up taking a nap and then waking up and realized, oh shoot, I didn't. I don't have enough time to get through this. And you proposed listening to it at 2x speed, and I'm like, I can't do that because he talks too fast. So
I watched the whole thing at 2x. I love 2x. I'm very used to it. That's how I edit Chrissy videos. I listen to Chrissy videos at 2x. So when she laughs, it's like, it's hilarious. It makes me laugh.
So I've never been a huge fan of Adam Crigler. I don't have anything. I've never had anything against him either. So I don't think he really.
Why weren't you a huge fan of him though?
I I guess when I watch him, it just doesn't. I just don't get drawn in. But I tend to jump around a lot with most content creators. There are very few where I just stick with them for a long time. Chrissy Mayer was like one of those exceptions where I will watch as much of her content as possible. I just love it. It just draws me in. She's hilarious. She has great guests, and then the Simcast panel is always a fun time. I don't get that kind of experience with Adam Cast or the Crigler Show. And I would say the same thing with Timcast. I really liked Timcast for a long time. I've watched a lot of his stuff, but it got to be somewhat repetitive. And I think you guys know what I mean by that.
Like his day show, or like you talking about like the nighttime podcast?
The nighttime show. I don't even really watch his stuff during the day. I used to, but he puts out so much content. If the headline doesn't capture me, I don't really worry about it.
No.
But I really loved the nighttime show. But even then, I'm mostly I'll watch it when it's a guest that intrigues me. I've gotten pretty selective about which shows I watch with Tim.
Well, it is
I do
a
feel
long
like
show, so
yeah,
you're
it's a
gonna
long
put 2
show.
hours into something
Yeah,
like,
and 5 nights a week, and then there's the special show 4 nights a week. For another half hour.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't feel like Adam biased me. I mean, if everything that he had to say about Lydia was true, then I would definitely feel that with it would definitely change my opinion. I do wonder how much he's exaggerating. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm wondering if Lydia will give any kind of response. Oh, and then one other thing that I want to when I tuned into his podcast, he was already a couple hours in, and so I decided to just I'm just go back to the beginning because I want to get the story. I'm just curious as to what his story is. But I happened to catch that a Carlin Bursenko had left a $50 super chat, trying to go after Tim.
Yeah, I saw that part.
Yeah. So I don't know if he responded to it specifically at all. He does. I know Adam does do responses to super chats.
He read her super chat, but you could tell he read it and didn't really respond to like what she was saying. It was just like, I read your super chat, and he moved on.
Okay.
But as Chrissy would say, Carlin needs to go to the gym, so when that happens,
Yeah, I can't find anything about Lydia responding yet, so.
Well, on the tweeters, 5 hours ago, she did post a link to Timcast's stream. So, and she pinned it to her thing, and then she put a little thingy mabob in her tweet that says "Don't at me" with a red X on it. So I think that's her response. I'm not seeing anything under live or videos on her YouTube. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't think she has anything to say, which she really shouldn't have to. But yeah, continue, Crash. Sorry.
Oh, so I don't know. Did Tim give any specific response in regards to Lydia that I haven't gotten to yet?
No.
Okay.
As regards to Lydia. I mean, I guess he roundabout kind of conveyed that nothing really happened by saying that there were a lot of lies said about his girlfriend and his family. So I think that would involve Lydia, since it involves his girlfriend,
Yeah, and that's specifically what all of the stories were about when it came to his girlfriend. I don't think he didn't say anything really disparaging about Tim's girlfriend the entire time that I saw. Yeah. It was all specifically
he was
around
very
Lydia.
kind. Yeah. Well, I guess, all right, so my bias is my bias is that I am on neither side. I think as a person that practices philosophy, I can't really pick a side when it comes down to the situation. But I will say I get irked by Adam, and I get irked by Tim. I think that Tim, on his podcast at TimcastIRL, I think he doesn't let his guests talk. I think he pushes Okay, golly. All right, so let me get into it. So Adam, I don't find him genuine. I really don't. I find a lot of cognitive dissonance to him. He sat there and for 10 minutes was talking about how, like, oh, he was the one who pushed for Lydia to have her mic and a camera. You know, he went in depth on that, how he was the one to invent that she should have a camera and a mic. Meanwhile, his wife is in the room with him the entire time he's doing the 6.5 hour stream. She don't got no mic or camera. Oh, so he's this altruist who wants to make things not weird. And he, made sure to point out it was weird. I felt it was weird. I mean, Tim's having to yell across her room. And it's like, but you're doing the same thing right now. Your wife is in the room. She's been in the room. You've been doing the Crigler show for a long time now. Yet there's no camera and mic.
Well,
and then on top of that.
Is that because, like, is his wife a regular part of the show, though?
I've seen
that's
her
the only
in,
pushback
like,
I would
yeah.
give on that is like, because Lydia was definitely there producing in the room every single time it was on. Like, is his
Yeah,
wife...
but do you ever see Jamie really talk or go on camera on Joe Rogan?
He has been more,
he'll sometimes
but not...
chime in.
Yeah.
Yeah. A producer is not necessarily a part of the show. They're the producer. They're the back end. They're the ones you don't see. You know? So it's a little bit odd. That's like, you bring that up, and it's like, but really, at the end of the day, what does that have to do with why he's not a part of Timcast?
Yeah.
It's like, what is that factual bit of information for? It's to build up your own self, to build up this structure of yourself as a good person. I am a good person. I got her the camera. I got her the mic. And then the way she treated me was bad. She was bad to me, and I was the good one. See, I got her the camera and the mic. So there's a lot of cognitive dissonance to me when it comes down to Adam. So it's not that I don't like the guy. I just find that he irks me. And then with Tim, he irks me because he doesn't let people talk. He does the way he does his show. And when you watch his video of the whole situation, Tim's talking about how he wanted TimcastIRL to be conversation. And that's how it was at first. They were talking about all these things outside of the politics and everything. And he was, I do feel, very earnest and truthful, where, yes, it did change to basically pretty much everything he talks about during the day to his nighttime show during the time period where it was lockdowns. There wasn't anything to talk about. And I do remember during that time period, he was saying, like, I wish we could be talking about movies, but everything's locked down. I wish we could be talking about aliens and this and that, but everything's on lockdown. Nothing's happening. You know, it was just politics. So yeah, I can understand how things get diverted, you know. But so, like, with him, that's a little bit less of a cognitive dissonance. You see what I'm saying? It's like, these two things kind of weigh and they make sense logically. But so with Adam, on top of that, I've watched him in the communities. I've watched how he tries to get on shows, and he does try and hop on moments. There have been shows that I've seen him hop on to that there was really no reason for him to be there, and he didn't really bring anything to it other than it just seemed like you're there because this is a big name moment, this is a big moment, and you want to just make sure your Adam name is a part of it. And it's kind of like, So you take that into account. So that, I guess you could say that's in a way my bias, but I think it's more so just looking at the situation logically and taking factual evidence of everything I've seen, whereas with Tim, the dude has consistently helped out people that have been banned, censored, financially and also publicly. The guy, except for Jack Murphy, he never really addressed that, but did he have to? I don't really think he had to. Like, yeah, it was interesting how, like, he was a weekly guest on the show, but anyone who tells you, who does interviews, it's hard to get people on the show. And on top of that, Tim likes doing it live. He does it live. So he's flying people out. He's paying for them to fly out. He's getting them hotels. Well, he is not, as you'll see when you watch the Crash, when you watch the thing later on, you find out more about his booking and everything. He's technically not doing it. It's his company. The people who work for him are doing the booking. So people like, a lot of people say, like, oh, what he did to Anomaly was wrong. How Anomaly's, like, plane got delayed and then he got kind of screwed over and stuck, like, wherever he was, and it was a whole debacle. And it's like, yeah, but how are you going to put that on Tim? Like, yeah, his company is one thing, but it's not like Tim was sitting there like, well, I don't care, blah, I'm going to do their show. Nah, it's his people. They messed up, not Tim, So, looking at the situation, Adam, I just, That's my bias. That's my bias there. And on top of that, when I break down the topics Adam brought up, so let's break it down. He talked about Lydia. He talked about the situations with Lydia that I guess emotionally irked him. So Tim cheating on his girlfriend from Adam's assumptions. It's like, what does that have to do with why you left? It doesn't have anything to do with why you left. Lydia not being good at her job. What does that have to do with why you left? If you can't get over the fact that, like, oh, maybe she's messing up, but at the end of the day, what does it matter? I was a watcher of the show during their time period, and honestly, I never really noticed. Like, when he was talking about that, I'm like thinking back, I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, sometimes, like, she could have switched cameras quicker, but it's like, what does that have to do with why you left? Okay, so you got so mad about delayed camera switching? What does that mean? Like,
Yeah, and he
it is
brought up that
ludicrous.
he had his own stream deck for it, for so it would switch to him
Yeah.
faster when he would talk.
Oh, because he's so great. He's so talented, so awesome, so amazing. He had to have one of these jammies with him at all times so he could control the stream. This is what Adam brings to your company. I'm just saying. This is what he brings. So he could switch his camera because you know what? His face is so important. He's so amazing. He's the one who was the light bringer to the channel. He needed to be able to switch the cameras because someone else couldn't do it because they're bad at their job. And I'm kind of like, all right, so another cognitive dissonance there. Then on top of that, Lydia talking about the schmishmortion, and how that affected him. Yet again, it's a thing. What does that have to do with why you're there? Like, I know this is a horrible topic. It's heart-wrenching, and it's something that is like, yeah, but that's something you went through. This is your job. If it's your job, you don't bring your schmishmortion into your job. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, things are going to be talked about. If someone has an opinion different than yours, oh, they got to be fired for it? Like, this is content creation. People are going to say things you don't like. They're going to say things that's going to hurt you. They're going to say things you don't agree with. Okay. So just buck up. Like, so when I think about all the things he had to say, it's like, well, why doesn't he have a job? Okay, he's showing he's very emotional. That's factual. Okay, someone said something that hurt his feelings. He got angry. He's getting emotional over the fact the cameras don't switch fast enough. That's emotional. He's getting angry over the fact that, oh, Tim's cheating on his girlfriend. That is absolutely, categorically has nothing to do with the job, nothing to do with the business, and it's emotional. So 3 things that are just emotion-based and nothing to do with work-based, business-based, ethics-based, really. So I think on this one, I'm trying to stay in the middle, but I am leaning towards Tim when I take all that into account. But, so now let's go on to the Tim stuff. I'm sorry to be rambling, guys. But
No, please.
I'm very passionate
I'm taking
about
notes,
this.
so go ahead.
Yeah, definitely reply to anything I'm saying. All right, so on to the Tim stuff. So Tim, he went through piece by piece. And I will say this about Tim. He is smart. This is not a guy that's dumb. He is very smart. And when you're dealing with a situation like this, you've got Adam, who's got what? He's got over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, I believe.
He's close to 200 at this point. I think
okay.
I saw 190 something.
That's not bad. Whereas Tim, 1.2 million? This is very similar to my opinions on the Nick Rakaida and Legal Bite situation. I made a whole thread about the whole Legal Bite situation on my Twitter. Follow it, Fealty Thoughts, just saying. Now, if you're the small dog, you can't take on the big dog. Big dog is the king. Legal Bite tried to take on the big dog by making snarky comments in her tweet in a situation where it's like, this dude's life has been affected. His food going on the table is affected. And you're going to make a snarky reply? A snarky comment? No, you can't do that. It doesn't work. They've got the bigger community. They've got the more passionate community. You don't. Adam doesn't. There's no need for this situation. There's nothing halting Adam's ability to put food on the table. So, let's get into Tim stuff. Tim breaks it down. He applies to it very concisely and very informatively, doing something Tim doesn't normally do. Tim showed he can have a conversation with you. Adam's biggest thing was, is stop being conversation based. Well, Tim just showed you for 2.5 hours, Tim can have a little bit of a free thought, free conversation, free speaking thing because, oh, guess what? He does that for 3 videos a day. He used to do it for 5 videos a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. This is what he does. So you're going to try and take a swing at him and say, oh, he's just controlling stuff. It's like, nah, this is a guy that built a channel that's over 1.1, 1.2 million people. He's built it up from scratch on his own 2 feet, on his own back, from money that he made during his golden handcuffs period, which I'm sure really did suck. Aside from the money, it's like, imagine being told you can't work now for like, what, a year? So just sit at home, take this money, and don't do anything to really, don't do anything, So he turned all that around into Timcast, which is amazing. And that's not trying to simp for him. So he breaks down what he's been doing with his business, everything he's planning for his business. So then things like Adam covered the contract, how supposedly Tim wanted to take control over Adam's songs and, different things that Adam created himself. I wish he would have showed the contract, but of course we don't get to see he just showed the papers, but didn't show in the contract where it says that. So of course Tim could sit there and be like, he didn't refute it, but at the same time, he was saying, well, it was a situation where you wouldn't be able to do those things. So you wouldn't be able to do your show at the same time as I'm trying to hire you for, I think he mentioned $250,000 a year, which is freaking amazing to do work for me. I'm trying to hire you to do work for me, and I don't think you would have time to do the things you're doing currently.
Do we know if that job's still open?
Yeah, no, he basically made it sound like, yeah, he could do this job if he wanted it. Like,
no, I'm saying like I'll apply.
Oh, you'll apply?
That's a lot of that's more than I'm making. I'm an engineer.
I mean, I'm too happy doing clips for Chrissy. So you know what, Tim, I'm out. Just saying. Take your $250,000, $250,000 a year, and shove it, Tim. Golly,
Tim,
no.
I'm available.
There you go, Crash. Wherever he is, hire him. He knows he's a great guy. He's huge. So we've got that $250,000. Adam turns that down because he doesn't want to, focus just on the job he would be getting hired for. And hey, I can't blame him on that. Like, he wants to go make his channel. He wants to build his empire. Great. Tim did the same thing. But Tim breaks down how much Adam was pretty much getting paid while there in his video. He breaks down the time period that Adam was being able to build up TimcastIRL, which then became the Crigler show, and how much he was getting paid during that time period. And it wasn't golden handcuffs. It was, here's the studio, here's the equipment, here's everything you could possibly need, and you'll get paid while doing it. Like, this is a cognitive dissonance for me. For Adam to go out there and then say these things about girlfriends, the situation, and then Lydia basically just dragging her under the coals. She's the whole reason why the guy's not there anymore, pretty much, because anyone who speaks against Lydia is gone in like a bad habit. And it's like, but then the dude let you live in his house. And on top of that, that was before Tim moved to, Maryland. Then let you come to Maryland for free and then live in Maryland, while he gives you another studio, all your equipment, and time to build up, while still paying you 6 figures. Yet again, cognitive dissonance.
Did that include what his wife was making because she was doing some production?
Yeah.
Stuff?
No, that doesn't excuse.
So that's on top of that. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Tim was paying him the salary he was still making before he left the show, which he had the total option of doing. I think
minus the revenue share from the super chats. But
so I will say that
if
I had gotten to that part of Tim's response video, that definitely would have shifted my bias for sure. Because you're right, Fealty, that he's off the show and he's still getting paid this exorbitant salary, and he's not
on top of room and board,
and he's not doing anything that's contributing to Tim's business. He's building his own in the house.
He's being paid to build his own thing, which has nothing to do with Tim. Tim has no gain, no benefit, nothing from anything Tim is paying him to do. Adam's not technically at that time. Adam is not working for Tim. You know?
Yeah. So when it comes to the contract, it would make perfect sense for Tim to ask for ownership of that as well if he's going to build it while living there.
Well, he wasn't asking for ownership of like.
Well, yeah, I guess you said
IRL.
yeah, that's right. He was told that he wouldn't be able to build that anymore. He would have to actually contribute to Timcast.
Yeah. Well, it was basically like hiring him to focus on the job he's being hired for instead of the other stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Because, too, Tim does explain that, all right, so while the Adamcast stuff, so Tim explained the whole Timcast IRL situation with Adam. Tim goes into depth on how when Adam was a part of the show, and I do remember this from my time of watching it, that Tim at that time was saying he wanted the IRL show to be about conversations outside of what he does during the day. And the point was Adam was going to be basically like the producer. He was going to be making the topics. He was going to be bringing the information to the show. And Tim would basically just walk in, join a conversation, and, you know, be bringing his name to this thing and also his talent conversation wise to this show. And Tim says Adam just never did anything. He never found topics. He never did research. He never did like really anything. So it forced him to have to then bring his topics into the show, which on that, see, this is where I'm in the middle. I don't know. You know,
Well,
there isn't a cognitive dissonance, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, judging by how Tim acts towards his guests, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Tim was kind of like, no, let's cover these topics because they're more pressing and, you know.
Yeah, he very often just forces hard segues into topics that he wants to talk about.
And that's something I didn't get about Tim too, is how he talked about he didn't want the IRL show to become an aggregate of the stuff he'd already done through the day. Like he wanted it to be different, so he's not just rehashing, because he discussed how it was basically splitting revenue. Like viewers from the Tim Pool channel stopped watching and went more to the IRL, or vice versa. But
I'm a living example of that.
Well,
oh yeah.
I mostly focused on the IRL because he would have guests on to talk about the stuff. Well, I didn't have much reason to be drawn to his daily stuff.
Yeah, so
it does take value away from the daily stuff because the daily stuff is just Tim and just Tim's thoughts, whereas then in IRL it's Tim and other people. You know, even though he doesn't necessarily let them really convey their thoughts on things.
Yeah, so it basically is that anyway. It's what he said he didn't want it to turn into. Like he said, he valued the outside perspectives and the topics that Adam would bring up, but because it kept it from just becoming a rehash of everything he'd already covered through the day and splitting that viewership.
But I mean, like he did cover, though, he did, you know, also cover that when he did say, like, during the lockdowns, there was nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, it's kind of hard, like, you know, a channel is like a ship. You can't just turn it on a dime, you know? So if he's going around like this is how his content's now been throughout the whole lockdown, you're talking over a year of these 5 nights a week. This is what you're doing, and you're hammering it like 5 nights a week. You can't then just be like, and now back to aliens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's built up this community of people that watch the channel. You switch like that, they disappear on you. I mean, I learned that hard way 8 years on Twitch. If I switched a video game, you know, it was like, what? You're not playing Skyrim anymore? Well, now I don't want to watch you, sir. It's like, yeah, Fallout 4, same company, but no, I am only about that Fusroda, bro. You know, it's like, and that's the way he puts money on the table. So he can't just be like, all right, yeah, this thing that I'm making thousands and thousands of dollars on a night in all these super chats, I'm gonna just change it on a dime to go back. So I can understand it's like, I mean, before we ever even did this thing, you know, I remember I was talking with you guys and I was like, you have to be careful in content creation where when people find you from while you're doing one thing, that's what they're expecting. You change that one thing, and like Crash said, he moves around from like different channel to channel, right? It's like people move around. So when something is like the whole like cornerstone of your business, you don't just change your business out of nowhere. So it's like, yet again, like I said, it's not a cognitive dissonance for me that like, okay, he got like kind of railroaded into this, thing, which at the same time, if I'm looking at it from Tim's side and like, the way he explains is he was excited about the show with Adam. He thought it could be something really big and he wanted it to be about topics outside of politics. But the way he says it is Adam just didn't do the work. So that for me is a cognitive resonance where now I'm looking at Adam and I'm like, the dude had free room and board, all this money. He's getting paid all this money. He even got paid to move. He's been in 2 houses. I mean, the Jersey house, and then he moved to the Maryland house. 2 houses.
Well, that
on
and
top of
he covered the Sweden
and Cass
trip.
Castle.
Well, you covered him to
no,
move
that's
back
what
to
I'm saying.
Sweden,
He
too.
paid for him to move. Yeah, he said over like $20,000 to move to a whole nother country across a whole ocean. Like, it's like this guy is not like being a dick to you. There was no point that Adam said Tim did any of this with any quid pro quo. Why is dude going to pay for you to move to a whole nother country? So it's a cognitive resonance for me, when Tim's explaining, like, he didn't do the work. Because look at everything he was handed. And what did he turn it into? He turned it into exactly what Tim was saying he didn't want the IRL thing to be. It was just pretty much the same things Tim was talking about during the day. With, honestly, I've watched Adam's show. It's not like a ton of research. It's basically like the things you expect people to say. There's nothing really like, I could watch Adam or I could watch, hundreds and thousands of other people and they're saying the same thing. What makes Adam any different? Whereas Tim, you could tell, you watch his show, he's got multiple articles, multiple viewpoints. He's got ways of showing you where people are BSing and why they're BSing on top of years and years and years of experience reading these articles and reading these situations that he can go back to and say, well, yeah, this article, look how it compares to these articles back then. Like, there's research there. There's information. There's value. Whereas Adam, the main things he kept mentioning on his was about how he was canceled so many times because he said the no words about certain topics, and it's like, oh, so that's your value? It's not the information you bring. Your value was that you did spicy things, which got you kind of semi-canceled. That's the cognitive dissonance yet again. So with Adam, I'm just getting cognitive dissonance, whereas with Tim, I'm getting cognitive resonance.
Yeah. Well, and something like, because like you're talking about Adam's cognitive dissonance, like he talks about how, promoting Lydia and then trashing her. And then he talks about how he would yell at her for doing a bad job, but so would Tim. Like he's trying to rationalize, why he was able to yell and go off the rails at one time, because Tim yelled at her for not doing stuff, which Tim never really talked about that. But to me, if you can have 2 different kinds of managers. You can either have the one who says, hey, you fucked up, so do this time, let's work on that, improve it. Or you get the kind of like, what are you doing? You're a fuck up, get out of my sight. And I don't think Lydia would have lasted there as long as she did if Tim was the latter of the 2. And then what was the other thing? Just how generous Tim has been with him. And like he gave him the studio in the basement. He gave him the cameras. He promoted his stuff whenever he first started out. And Tim said he's also invited Adam to be on the show since then, and Adam just refuses to go on. And why? Why would you not want it? Like, why would you not go on the show unless you're afraid of something being brought up?
Though, he did say he would want to have Tim on his own show first so he can press questions and make sure he can pretty much press the questions, which is another cognitive dissonance. Oh, you want him on your show? Like, yeah, okay, you've got like almost 200,000 subscribers, but you're demanding the guy with 1.2 million come to you first?
That's like telling the the guy who drives the nicest car in town to come ride in your hoopty first.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
wait,
it's telling.
like what did
It's
Tim doesn't
telling.
owe,
It's
well, Tim
yeah,
doesn't owe him anything, just like Tim talks about all the time, like with Joe
exactly.
Rogan. He's like,
Yep.
Joe didn't owe me anything. He canceled on me twice. It was frustrating, but
Yeah.
he's like, but Joe's got the biggest podcast in the world. He's super famous. He doesn't owe him shit. Yeah, it could
Hmm.
go like Tim had no right to demand that Joe fix it and make amends and do it right and make it better and come on his show first. Like he said, like I was grateful I got to go on.
Well, he even said that at that time he didn't have much money.
Hmm.
So when Joe like canceled on him, like it was a financial hit. And on top of that, Joe didn't pay for the flights and everything. So that was a fully financial hit on Tim,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, it just shows you that it's like, who knows? We could be wrong on the whole Tim thing, and Tim could just be a very smart guy utilizing topics and responses that he feel are the best moves to make. Like how he loves Magic the Gathering. Who knows? We don't know these people, but when you're just looking at the factual existential statements, there's so much more cognitive dissonance on Adam's side than there is on Tim's side.
Mm.
There's
You know?
also if it was really as toxic as Adam was claiming, I struggle to see how Tim could have at least seemingly high retainer on his entire crew. I mean, and I guess it's possible that it's something we don't see if there's a lot of turnover, but it doesn't seem that way. I don't watch any of the IRL blog, the Cast Castle, or to
I
get to know
watched
anybody
every
else.
episode of that. When it
Okay,
was
so
on
you would know
YouTube.
then if there was a high turnover, because you would see people.
There
like-
was a lot of people that came and went. Like
Okay.
Andreas Zerdis and his wife. There was quite a few people from the Cast Castle side that like were around in the early days that then weren't later. There was a whole bunch of D&D people that were coming around, but then at the same time, there's a lot of people that were coming around that weren't really a part of the crew. They would just come and hang out. So it's like you don't know who the heck was actual crew in the early days of Cast Castle and who wasn't. So it's hard to know.
Okay.
But I mean, even with the Cast Castle thing, it's like if people want to sleuth it out, if you go to the last Cast Castle video, I put a long comment on that video. I was so upset that he was getting rid of that channel. Because at the same time, I do believe in lost leaders. And it was something that I used to watch Philip DeFranco a lot back in the day before I found out this guy he's not with it. He's not really learning things. He's pushing his own opinions more so than anything else. But he had a vlog channel, and he had a guy named Joe Pants that used to do his vlog. And I loved the vlog. You get to know the people behind the scenes. Even if it's not necessarily real, you get to know the people. So when Tim got rid of that, I felt like it was a massive disconnect and it was a bad tactical move. Because it's a way for the community to connect with the people that are a part of his thing, a part of his company. And it's a way to bring them in and let them get to know you too. But he felt it wasn't doing well. So that's one thing about Tim. I do think he is business savvy. He doesn't need the Cast Castle vlog. He's already built everything he needs for himself. So everything he's building outside of himself, if it doesn't make sense to have it there because it's not making anything, he doesn't keep it. Because he can't. If he's throwing out money to the Cast Castle thing, he's throwing out money to all these ventures he's trying to build, the guy is going to be in the poorhouse. I mean, he's definitely pretty free with his money. I mean, clearly with the whole Adam thing, paying a guy for what, 7 months, 8 months, even though he's doing nothing for you, and more so taking away from you, because even during that time, while he's getting, mind you, during that time he's in the basement doing these shows, he very rarely skipped a chance to convey that the situation was kind of messed up. I mean, I don't think I've seen him on an interview since then where he doesn't at least convey it once that the whole Timcast stuff was a little bit shady or there was something there, or make some kind of snide comment. Whereas Tim, yes, he's very smart, but you know what? Whenever I, watch Tim, what does he say? Buy Crigler coffee if he does happen to mention Adam, or, watch Adam's channel or whatnot. Like, try and find a moment where Tim's making a snide comment about Adam. It's very rare. Whereas Adam, yeah,
Tim, as far as I've, and I know I haven't seen every single thing that Tim has put out there, but I have never seen him disparage Adam since the incident where he fired him. Not once.
That's
I mean,
another
I don't
thing.
think he disparages anyone really. Like, the guy doesn't really like. I mean, unless they're lefty kind of people, or
That's another
media.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of times where, like, there was one lefty commentator that he was trying to have on the show, and he called him out because he canceled and said for one reason, but was telling the public a whole nother reason to try and throw Tim under the bus.
It was Sam
Mhm.
Cedar,
Over
wasn't it?
lockdown. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, Sam Cedar.
Yeah. Wait, that's another thing I don't get either. It's like Adam kept bringing up how it seemed like Tim wants to be his friend, but he's so confused about it because he won't reach out. And it's like, but you stopped watching him and you stopped communicating with him and you cut everything off. And it like, I see Tim's response as more from a corporate standpoint and having, because money did become an issue because Tim said, the accountant said, hey, we're paying this guy too much, giving all the revenue that's coming in, and I think he said he ended up making more than Tim was actually making after everything was said and done. And the
Yeah.
accountant's like, yeah, there's no way for us to justify that given that he's a co-host. Like, something's got to change. And with the NDA that Tim gave, like without us knowing the details, of course, we're speculating. But if Tim comes in and he's like, hey, I still want you to be a part of this. I want you can do this and help us grow this. And Adam's just like, no, because he wanted to take ownership of everything. Like, why would you not try to negotiate that first? I'm
Mhm.
sure. I don't think Tim, giving all the examples that he has given and seeming that he does take chances with his money and he's admitted to paying people overboard for the jobs that they do. I don't see Tim just being like, nah, you can't have the song that you wrote or the music that you produce. Like, I don't see Tim being it, especially since he is an artist.
Yeah.
And
Well, and Tim on the Cast Castle vlogs, I mean, the guy gets Andreas Erdis on his Cast Castle vlogs, and it's like, try and watch through those videos and figure out why he's there. Like, yeah, he's a really smart guy, entertaining guy. He's got his own YouTube channel. I think it's Andreas Erdis on there, Xirtus. Very smart guy. But look through the Cast Castle vlogs. Why is he there? You never really find out. But Tim's buying him all this stuff. I mean, he was buying everyone their stuff because he was trying to give them anything they could possibly need to make content. That was it. Here's a 3D printer. Oh, you want a couple 3D printers? Yeah, make some chess pieces. What came of it? There was like a few videos of Andreas like printing out chess pieces, but nothing came of it. Where's the chessboard? Where's a cool like tower you built out of chess pieces that each individual smaller piece was built and then you made a tower out of it? Like, I don't know, build a structure, then burn it and explode it like they do on Mythbusters. I don't know.
or even brand it. Like, brand
Yeah.
it as like Castle Rooks or whatever. Make
Yeah.
a actual
Yeah, turn
brand
it
of the
into
chess pieces and make a small business venture out of that. Like,
Or just give it away to viewers. Like, do a little like giveaway thing. Like, hey, a chess piece that we were printing out, like, we're gonna do a giveaway. Thanks everyone for supporting us in the community. Like, there was no innovative content creation. So it makes it sing with me when Tim is saying, like, this guy, like, the point of him was to bring the content. You be the producer. Here, I'm giving you the chance to succeed. Because look what he did for nearly a year for him. I'll give you a salary. I'll give you a studio. I'll give you a room. Like, and what do you make? It's like the same thing, different smell, pretty much. I mean, you even use the same name, pretty much. You just switched out Tim and Adam. Like, how creative are you? It doesn't, like, the way Adam conveys it, it doesn't sing logically. As a practitioner and practicer of philosophy, there's no foundation there for me. I wish there was. I don't think Adam's necessarily a bad guy, but some people just don't have fire in them, and some do. And that's where you get a Tim, and that's where you get an Adam. I don't think he has fire there. I think he has a lot of emotion. I don't think he's necessarily an evil guy, But I think that from his standpoint, he just doesn't have fire in him. Some people, when you say to them, hey, we're going to give you this opportunity, would you want to do something? They take it and run with it. They try and innovate with it. They try and figure out things for it. Like, maybe you're making clips for a channel and you're like, hey, I'm going to try this thing out. I'm going to edit it differently. I'm going to do this and that. And there's managers or people in charge that like go with it and be like, hey, yeah, give it a shot. See how it goes. And then there's people who don't.
That's why I think it would be interesting to get a full-fledged, detailed backstory of Adam's past, because anyone who watches Tim, they know he grew up in the ghetto of Chicago. He was
Yeah.
maybe middle income on good
Yeah.
days. Like he grew
Well,
up
he was
like
homeless for a while. They
yeah,
had to
like
live out of that car. Or,
he dropped out of high school. He was homeless for a while. Like I mean, he knows how to survive. And people like that, usually when you give them a chance and they say, "Oh, this can go somewhere," they take, like you said, they take off with it full speed ahead. The only thing because I watched Crigler for a while whenever he started his own show, but then I kind of lost interest in it because it wasn't really engaging. Like, again, it was rehash of general topic issues with no great revelations or details on anything that we might have missed watching it on another channel. But I know he was a male model. He says he was a skateboarder, a pro skateboarder. I mean, just those two things alone, they like unless he was some gutter trash that got picked up by a modeling company because they saw a certain look that he had, it sounds like rich white kid stuff. Or better off to do white kid stuff than me.
yeah. I mean, everyone I knew growing up that were skateboarders. I mean, my area was more so middle class back in the day, but it's been going downhill as the economy's been going downhill since about 2008, maybe a little bit before that. So it's more so lower middle class right now, maybe upper lower. A lot more rundown houses in the area. But back when I was a kid, like yeah, all my friends that were skateboarders, because skateboards are not cheap.
No, not
It's
good ones.
definitely it's a
No.
purchase. Yeah, I mean it's a purchase, and they break too. I mean it's something that you're beating this thing up, especially if you're trying to learn how to grind things and do all this other stuff. So it breaks. So it is a cost. So yeah, all my friends that were in it, like yeah, their families weren't poor, that's for sure. But then
Yeah.
again, Tim, his family was poor, and he also got into skateboarding, but not at a competitive level. You know, but it's also priorities. Is this something that you want to prioritize? A lot of people act like, oh, money is hard and this and that. It's kind of like, well, if you really do an accounting of their whole situation, a lot of the time, I'm sure you'd find there are accounting errors in their opinion of themselves, and sometimes costs go to things that don't necessarily need to happen.
Yeah.
So you can find the funding for a lot of things.
See, I see Tim as one of those who, growing up, what work he did, he spent the money on things he actually enjoyed and like put effort into. And Adam seems more like he just kind of did what he thought was fun at the time.
I
I
don't
mean,
know about
again,
that.
it's all speculative though too. I mean,
Yeah,
they could have
yeah.
had a very similar upbringing, and we're just like I'm just making an ass of myself sitting here guessing on based on very very small minute details.
Maybe. I mean, I just don't. I don't really. I can't remember any foundational existentials to really back that up. Since like Adam really like he didn't delve too much into his past, whereas
Hmm.
Tim has delved into his past many times. And I mean, like you explained, like yeah, we know that he was homeless and living in a car. We know that his family had a business that went under. We know the area he grew up in. Like, we know a lot about his past. We don't know much about his actual family members. I mean, I have my thoughts on Chris. I don't think Chris is a great guy after things I've seen him do on Cast Castle, especially to his sister Lisa. And I do think that guy does have some issues, and he does have a darkness. And one thing where I do feel Tim lied. One major lie I think Tim said was about the lawsuit, because I do remember back in the day when that what was the name of that news company they had that Tim funded, and that girl Molly was part of it. Chris was a part of it. I can't remember. I think it was called Scanner for a while, but that wasn't the original
Yeah.
CNR.
Uh, no, I
I think
think
it's
it
with
was
a
Scanner.
P. Well, it was Scanner, but it was something else first. Scanner
I
is
know
what it
what you're talking
became.
about.
Yeah. But so Tim's brother did sue him. I do remember, like, without a shadow of a doubt, Tim talking about once in one of his videos during the daytime, a long time ago, that his brother did sue him. So I do feel that was a lie on Tim's part, because I have a very vivid memory of him talking about that. But at the same time, a lie like that, maybe his brother was talking about suing him, went to a lawyer, talked about it. The lawyer told him, you have a case. Whereas the news goes out and, people go out and say, oh, wow, his brother's suing him because this thing gets out. And at the end of the day, he decides not to go through with it. So, like, did he sue him? Did he not? To me, that's a lawsuit. Your brother pretty much, researched suing you. That to me is your brother sued you. It's kind of messed up. And I do have, with his brother, my one foundation existential is, if you watch Cast Castle, there's one video where his sister's in the truck with him, and they're driving down this road, a very hilly road that goes like this, up and down, up and down. Like you can see in the video, the whole road's doing this. And his sister's getting nauseous. Very nauseous from it, and she's begging him to pull over, and you see her in the video like, please pull over. And he's like, I can't, there's nowhere to pull over. And like the way he's saying it, just like, that's a viciousness. That to me is an existential viciousness.
I actually remember that's one of the few episodes I did watch, and I was like, dude, you're in an SUV, like,
yeah,
you can pull over, like, you're in the middle of BFE West Virginia, there's plenty of room to pull overs, and there were no cars going by. Like, you might have saw one or two.
Yeah.
And quick look, and it looks like there was a suit filed against him for the Subverse trademark.
That was the name of it, Subverse. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there was a suit. You know what I'm saying? So, but then again, to me, a lie on that is kind of like he doesn't want to talk about family stuff. And it also, at the same time, it has nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas, like, the things I feel like Adam is lying about is lying in attack of, whereas Tim is lying in defense of family members who have nothing to do with this situation. Whereas Adam, he's lying about Lydia having relations with this guy and trying to defame a person's whole identity. And it's like, for what?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was like, for what?
I mean, it seems like, pretty much from watching both sides and what I gathered, like, it distills down to that whole blow up that Adam had with Lydia, and Adam pretty much laid out the ultimatum.
Well, Adam said he didn't.
He said he didn't.
Adam said, yeah.
I don't know, because
it's a bit of interpretation of it's a bit semantic. I feel I can easily see how how anybody would take that as an ultimatum.
Well,
if you're not careful, if you're not clear with your wording, if that really wasn't what Adam intended, if you're not clear with your wording, it's going to come across that way. So I don't think that there was any understanding on Adam's part. And that's giving him the benefit of the doubt that that's really the way that it went down.
Well, if you worked somewhere, do you think you could yell at your coworker in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I'm not talking about him yelling at Lydia. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't. So no, to answer your question, I'm talking about just with Adam, because I think he said it was over text, back and forth with Tim, or maybe it was a conversation later where he said that if he's going to work with Lydia, his wording from the other night or last night was that he said that if I'm going to be on the show with her, I need to be able to work this out. Mm-hmm. Whereas what Tim was saying was that he actually said that it's either me or Lydia, and that's what I'm getting at. That, like, if that's really what if that's what you intended, then I would put that on you, that your wording wasn't clear enough, because it's very easy to take that as it's either me or Lydia. And especially if you're doing that in an emotional moment, you know, and the anger's coming through, that's just going to harden it even more.
And I could
Makes
see
sense.
him saying something like that because he's shown he can be emotional and he can take, because he admits, like, yeah, I probably did take it too far and I'm being petty against Lydia, but you know, fuck her, I don't care. Um,
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
yeah. He obviously has a bias against her, and it was there from before. What again, we don't know the details, like we can't see everything that happened there, but obviously the uh, losing the small one was something very personal to Adam. He took it very
Yeah.
personally when she voiced a contrary opinion. And don't get me wrong, 100% believe that Lydia she was a hype man for Tim. I can absolutely
Mhm.
see her just being his hoorah. Uh, but having something like that where someone has very serious personal feelings about it and it gets questioned by someone else and you're not ready to deal with that yet. Kind of like how Elon and the Alex Jones thing. Like
Hmm.
Elon basically said, "Yes, I'm making this business decision based on my personal feelings." Like
Yeah.
that's what I would equate this to. And heat of the moment, people say dumb stuff. I think it's how you approach it from there, like, because Adam said that he did leave. So, and Tim said that Adam said gave him it's either her or me. And I believe Tim when he said, "You know what? I don't want to." He's like, "I don't want to get in between it because they're but I know both these people. I work with both these people, but they're also both my friends." Like at that point, I think Tim should have stepped in as more of a mediator if he really cared about both these people.
I
But
don't think he could do that though, as the owner of the
yeah,
company.
that's true.
You know, because then that
Um,
brings him into the situation. You know, where he'd be ethically required to have an outcome from the
you
situation.
know what? And that's when Tim hired the HR chick.
Yeah.
So that make yeah. So Tim could have I mean, it sucks. Tim was kind of stuck, and
Yeah.
then a solution presented itself, and I think he felt that that was a little bit easier. But I don't think Tim. I don't think Tim. Even if that were true, what Adam said, and uh, Tim said he made the ultimatum when he says he didn't, it
Mhm.
still doesn't quite make sense because Tim was like, "Hey, you can do this. I'll pay you this," and he kept paying him and all the salary and everything, and it just something just doesn't add up. I think Adam had a super hot, very emotional moment about an extremely sensitive topic, and he blew up. And whenever Tim's like, "Hey, you can't do that," I think he took it as a personal attack against him, and he just never looked back.
Well, mind you, he sits there and talks about how Tim doesn't let his guests have their own opinions and stuff like that, and it's kind of like, oh, but I flipped out on her because she had her own opinion on something.
Yeah,
Another cognitive dissonance.
I mean,
It's just there's so many.
Tim definitely likes to be in charge of the show and the formatting and the
Yeah.
flow of it. That with the Milo and Amanda Milius episode 100% like you could see him slowly unwinding. Like I think his patience was exhausted after Milo, and then Amanda got on. It was just like you could see him unwinding.
Oh,
I
did you see the
love that he
first
tried to.
Amanda Milius one? She got drunk, like hammered,
But
and
that was the episode
did
where
the
he
whole
he
show.
had the talking stick.
Did he have the
No,
talk?
it
Or
was
No.
the
was that the?
second one. It was the talking ship. He's like,
That's right.
yeah, that was the one. That was the most recent one with Amanda and Corin.
Hmm. She's funny. I like Amanda Milius.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish she could not get drunk and stuff, but yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just there's a lot more, I think, logical resonance with the Tim side, and the parts of Tim's side that has dissonance have nothing to do with the situation, really. You know, it would only have things to do with the situation insofar as it's just a character attack. Oh, so his brother, he lied about the lawsuit. Okay, so that's a character attack. It doesn't have anything to do with the situation. You
hmm
know, when it comes down to the exact situation, it's like, Adam does admit that he got heated with the Schmishmortion. And, he had words with Lydia. If I'm a CEO of a company, I'm looking at that like, look, you guys got to, figure this out. Because if I have to figure this out, then it's going to have to get, like, legally, it has to get handled.
Mhm.
So it's like, please don't bring me into this thing, because then something has to come of it. Whereas if you guys figure it out, look, we could continue on. Like, please just shake hands and we could continue on. I'm not a part of it right now. And just let it bygones be bygones. Let's all work together. Let's do this thing. Like, that to me sings with when Tim sang, like, he really was excited about the show and he had these dreams for the show. He felt it was going to be huge. Whereas Adam's like, here's this roadblock that I needed to be evened out so I could continue down the road. So it's a dissonance when he's trying to convey as if Tim just fires him pretty much after 7-8 months of paying you $150,000, letting you use all this stuff and equipment, and then paying for you to move, and
Well,
so
that
it's like,
and
yeah,
like if Tim was that ruthless and just that cutthroat, like why would he have not gotten rid of Adam earlier? Because what was Adam really bringing besides some emotional, spicy commentary?
no.
Like not like why was the Cast Castle? Why was half that crew there and making content? Like if he
Yeah.
was really that cutthroat, he would give no one a chance. It would just be he wouldn't have offered him another job. He wouldn't have paid for him to move twice. He
Yeah.
wouldn't have kept him on the payroll at all. Like Tim put himself
To
at a
do
huge
nothing.
risk. Yeah, to do his own show. That
Yeah.
that's one thing I noticed about Crigler's show too. He liked to have Andreas and Ian on right, but knowing, and he scheduled it right before Timcast IRL came on.
Well, he even
And
the whole quartering thing, where quartering's episode of Timcast IRL was pretty much canceled because he was on with Adam. And the way Adam makes it out is like, they could have just knocked on the door and been like, oh, we need you. So it's like, oh, so you set them up to look bad. You had this person on the show and you worked on their show. You know what time they start. Like, don't act like you don't know what time they freaking start. So you invited on the guests that they flew out, they paid for the room and board for, had on your show, benefited from having on your show, and then set them up to look bad. You know what time they start. And it wasn't in your priorities to say an hour before their show starts the time because, like you like to say, you were on the show. You helped build it. You were a part of the fire to make it awesome. So you wait till a half hour before their show starts to end your thing? It's like, yet again, a cognitive dissonance. It's like, don't act like you didn't know what time they start every single time. 5 days a week. You live in the house. You like to point it out that you were living in the house. You don't know what time they start. You don't know why they start at that time.
well, and I could see if it was an extension, like a pre-show that was part of the whole company, but he made sure it was very separate, that there was bad blood between them. Everybody got this ominous feeling that something terrible happened. And honestly, it's kind of a big nothing burger now that everything's out of the way and it gets distilled down to, oh, so there was a fight and somebody probably took it overboard and then someone kind of voluntarily walked away.
Well, I mean, look at our conversation right now. I mean, we are covering pretty much all the topics in it. And in my opinion, I think Adam looks a lot more shady. And as someone, like I'll keep on saying, as a practitioner of philosophy, I like to practice philosophy. I feel I am always in the practice of philosophy. When I'm looking at the existential parts of this, there's so much cognitive dissonance to Adam's side and a lot more resonance to Tim's side. I mean, we've got 3 people and all the things we've talked about. We do have, I mean, like, are we big watchers of Adam? No. Are we big watchers of Tim also? More than Adam, I would probably say, amongst the 3 of us. But at the same time, these are 2 people that we have had experience watching, I'd say more than, nothing, right? And between us 3, I mean, I haven't really heard anything to really say that we're kind of wrong on the things we're saying about Adam, or that the dissonance is wrong. you know, that there's something missed there, maybe, you know.
It,
See, yeah.
it's
I mean,
like it's like
I
that
think the
old saying.
context.
Well, it's
Oh,
like,
go
but
ahead.
you have
Oh, how about Crash? Crash hasn't
okay.
said
Oh,
much. What's
Yeah.
a
I was just gonna say, just a lot of the context that gets added, especially from what Tim had put out there, that I'm really just gathering secondhand from you guys. Kind of just puts it into perspective for me. I didn't even realize how long Adam had been in the house
Well,
post
I could
the
be
firing.
wrong about. I'm pretty sure
Was
it was
it
about probably 7 months, maybe around that.
okay? Because
Because
I
didn't they end in like a February time period, February, March, and then I think he had moved in that like September, October time period.
okay, yeah,
I thought it
that sounds about right.
was. I thought it was like August-ish that he ended,
Was
and then
it?
he moved
Hmm.
earlier the next year. I don't know. I
I mean,
could
'cause
be wrong.
I
Which would
wasn't.
still be
He
around
was,
that 6
yeah.
months.
He
Like,
was definitely there a while.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. Like, I didn't actually watch Adam Cast after he broke off and started doing his own thing. I think I've watched maybe like 2 episodes. So I assumed he had already moved out. This is actually news to me. And the
Oh yeah,
fact
no,
that he
he
was
was in the
getting
basement.
the fact that he was getting paid, and he didn't even. I don't really remember him mentioning that. Well, I mean, I guess he did, but it, until you put that he. So you guys told me, oh, he was actually getting paid like 6 figures to be there for that period of time while he was building his show. I'm like, any normal person put into that kind of circumstance would be their mind would be blown, but it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
You know, like I would when he says that he's grateful for Tim, I'm not sure how much I believe him on that because I'm like it makes me speechless just the idea of it. It's like, here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you 6 figures and you're just going to be in my basement doing your own show every night, and it's going to be like right before my show or whenever you want, and you can interfere with my show, and I'll even pay for you to move out when you're ready. And I can't even imagine that level of generosity from someone,
That's super
because I don't know
rare.
anybody who has that kind of money.
Well, he is a rich guy, but at the same time, I mean, look at how much he was investing in, pretty much in the whole company. I mean, he's building a town in what, West Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, he's basically building his own little.
Yeah, he
It's
wants to have his
Freedomistan.
own store.
Freedomistan, yeah.
Freedomistan, that's right. I mean, he wants to have like a movie theater, his own show, a stage and stuff to do shows there. Like he wants to build culture for the whole community, not just like the people on that property. That's a
Mhm.
lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
And think about how long. I mean, on top of that, you know what I'll do? How about this? I'm gonna try and portray what I feel would have been a more sensical thing to say if I was someone in that situation. All right. Man, it just breaks my heart that I was a part of something so big. I had this opportunity to live in a house for free, this mansion with all these great people. I was getting the chance to pretty much be paid to make content where it wasn't on my back to build myself up. It was being paid to be built up because I'm a part of something so large. I'm getting this opportunity to do this, and it was all taken away from me. It was my dream. I was so happy. I was a part of this amazing thing, and it was taken away from me. I wish I could still be a part of it. That was amazing. Getting the chance to do this to tens of thousands of people and share my thoughts on things, and it's gone. Wouldn't you think that would be something someone would say?
Okay, so I would, but that requires a couple of things. One, you have to admit that you did make a mistake, like, and actually own it. Then you have to
Well, I
be
don't think so. I don't think so. Why would
okay.
he? If it was taken away from you, that's putting the blame on someone else because someone else did it, right?
No, I mean like him and well, I guess he did kind of come out and say, yeah, I probably blew up a little bit harder than I should.
Yeah,
But
on
to
Lydia.
yeah, but to have that, he doesn't have that humility though, and that's a big thing. Like what the way you just said it, it was almost like, man, you know what? I had this great thing going. I made a mistake, and I didn't handle it the way I should have. Like that. That
Well,
takes
no, I wasn't saying mistake in that. I was saying that someone took it. It was taken away from me. It was you're heartbroken over what was pretty much stolen from you.
Okay, see,
You
I
know?
heard that as it was taken away because I didn't take these steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
Um,
See?
well, I and for me too, it's like I don't think I think Tim is much better at separating personal and
Yeah.
business dealings than Adam is. If
Spot on.
it seems like well, I mean, he admitted it. He took personal feelings about something to a business that he was part of, and he heard something he didn't like and couldn't separate the two. Couldn't wait till afterward. Couldn't. Well, no, he said he did wait till afterward, but
Yeah, it
he just
was.
hammered it way too hard.
Well, I
And
mean, I remember Adam was conveying it pretty much from the get-go that like things were wrong. You know, I truly do not remember a time period where Adam wasn't conveying things were wrong. I really don't. I wish I did.
oh
I
yeah,
hope I'm
from day
wrong.
one of
You
the
know.
split, he's like, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. It was just, it was rough, and
Hmm.
it was bad. He kept trying to make it sound like it wasn't his fault. Like nothing he did had contributed to that. That it was just the cult leader had cut him loose. That kind of thing.
And now we know he wasn't under NDA.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
what?
all that
Why hold
time that I
out?
Well,
don't want to
Why hold
talk
out?
about.
well, we've
Yeah.
actually he is actually and maybe I'm the only one who's heard this, but he has actually said that he wasn't under NDA.
Well, no, they said it. He said it on
No,
his show.
Yeah,
and
No.
he
Tim
held up
said
the
it,
NDA
but
and said, I didn't sign it.
No, I'm talking about like for a long time. I've heard him say it multiple times on other people's shows.
Mhm.
Whenever it comes up, that he says like, "Oh, I'm not under an NDA." He said that he said he refused to sign an NDA. And the way he kind of said it, I'll never forget the couple times I've seen it. It is a bit irksome because it was a bit of arrogance, being like, "All you plebs who sign NDAs, I didn't do it." But yeah, he is throughout the time since the firing has said that he the in fact the way he portrayed it before was that he was being pressured to, and then he refused to. But last night's manifesto, it didn't come across that way because he gave. I think that part of the story was a bit more genuine when he said that Tim came in and said to him, "You're not going to sign this." I'm willing to bet that's exactly what he said. I bet he remembers that clearly.
When you watch Tim's reaction and what Tim explains it as, Tim's sung way more to me than what Adams did.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that I think Tim had a good read on Adam and said that I know that you're not going to sign this, but I'm going to put this before you to give you the option anyway.
I think you're right on that. I think Tim, he would know. He would know. This guy's not going to sign this thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah,
way.
yeah. He definitely knew that Adam wasn't going to sign it. But going back to the whole, because he talked about like he didn't have an NDA. He just didn't want to talk about it. So to me, that leads more into the type of person Adam is, because he'd rather just completely cut ties with someone who was so generous with you than even discuss what happened. Like that.
Hey,
That
someone
to
gives
me,
me $150,000. I ain't talking shit about him.
well, it's just
Just saying.
well, my thing is a lot of his viewers sided with him because he wouldn't talk. Like they just assumed. To me, a lot of his viewers assumed the worst. Like they assumed like
Yeah.
Tim was this maniacal business guy who was cutthroat and didn't give a shit about anyone. And then you find out like he was still getting paid. Tim paid for his moves. Tim bought him a $2,000 bottle of whiskey before he
Well, it's
left.
the Carlin Borisenko situation. Carlin has fans,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
she's hounding, my Carlo and Carrie Smith. I mean, she's stalking them,
Yeah.
and actively taking moves against them. Yet somehow she's got, a couple thousand supporters.
Well, what kind of cognitive dissonance do you have when you won't even talk about a situation that you know is driving a lot of traffic for you? Like, Are you weighing it like, man, I should really address this so people know what really happened, or should I kind of keep it tucked back and just feed off of the buzz that it's causing?
Yeah.
Because it gets
Well,
brought
too, I
up.
mean, Lydia's not at the company anymore.
Mm,
So Lydia doesn't really have as large of a public facing response vector anymore about anything that was just said about her. Giving foot massages, being in someone's bed,
well, and
you
she's
know.
under NDA now.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, that's true.
Oh
She
yeah,
is
Yeah,
under
so
that
NDA.
she
is true.
can't. That's probably why. That's
Wow.
probably why she had. Because to me, I mean, I found Lydia to be a hype man. She had some good takes on some things. She had some pretty generic takes on others.
Yeah.
But I do see her as taking some pretty serious offense to stuff like that, given the morals and values that she has espoused.
No. Well, I mean, he really conveyed it like she was horrible at her job and she did nothing. But in
Mm,
reality, as someone who makes clips for a YouTube channel, it takes a lot of time. This isn't something you do in like 20 minutes here. It takes a lot of time. She was making the IRL clips. She was uploading them. She was making the thumbnails. She was doing a lot behind the scenes. She was a part of booking people. That's a hard thing to do. You know, I don't know if she was in charge of it, but she was definitely part of it. I mean, many times she'd say, like, she'd be messaging people, and other creators would say, I was talking back and forth with Lids. They didn't say some unknown name. No, they said Lids.
mm.
That's true. Yeah,
So,
they always bring her up when they talk about their experience at going to
yeah.
Timcast,
And
the
she would always
compound.
go and pick up the guests too.
Yep.
She was the one who picked them
Well,
up and.
Chris did also a lot of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the Cast Castle stuff, there was a lot of episodes where he would be going back and forth to pick people up, and they'd be talking about how Chris picked them up in this two-door kind of sports car, which doesn't make any sense. It's like you have a company car. Like, that's a reason why Tim bought, like, a couple of these cars, yet you use your personal car that you can't even fit luggage in. And you have these guests talking about how you're getting picked up in this car that can't even fit luggage, which, yet again, is another situation. Chris, I find issues with. It's like you got a company car, you're picking up this person who's supposedly important. They're a guest to your home, pretty much. You're this business that's paying your bills, and you pick them up in this rinky-dink red two-door sports car that can't even really fit luggage. It
Wait,
says something about a person.
Chris is the middle child, isn't he?
I think so. I think Tim is like the youngest of the boys.
The boys.
The
And then
boys. There's
Yeah,
the oldest brother, though, that Tim mentioned. Well, that Adam mentioned, that Adam liked. Adam liked the oldest one that lived in Florida. Then I think you have Chris, and then you got Tim.
Yeah,
But Chris is ex-military, so maybe there was something there that kind of changed the dude or something. I don't know.
and I don't. It to me the whole jacket thing. It's like just work it out and get it mailed back to you. Like if there was a mistake and you knew about it, why not try to fix it? Again, it all
I
comes
just
back to
don't.
why are you not trying to fix these things? Like it doesn't seem like
Yeah.
he actually tried to fix anything until something serious was on the line that he kind of got slid on a platter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like we just, I think it is so. Wow, it's so big that you pointed out that Lydia's under NDA, right? She's, she's imprisoned right now on this topic. She
And
can't
so
reply.
and her husband is too,
Yep.
Yeah.
because he's their tech guy.
Yeah. So pretty much Adam literally just claimed she did sexual things with her boss while he's in a relationship. And it even, it extended to the time period where she was with Adam. And he did give a quick jab of, and other people that work there, like all the people that work there, that's messed up, man.
Yeah.
It's one thing if he was like, look, the Schmishmortian thing really messed me up. And it was very emotional to me. And it was a buildup of many situations leading up to that where I felt like this person wasn't bringing anything to the show, was hindering the show, was causing a lot of things for the show to not be what it could be. And I felt like if you take all these situations together, it should be a fireable offense, or at least a movement offense where they go and do something else at the company. You know, Sarah was hired to be a D&D entertainer on Tim's, you know, range of shows. He did record a Dungeons and Dragons show. It was Sarah. There was this other skateboarder chick that was on the cast for a short while and then disappeared to I don't know where. You know, and then Sarah became like just a person that's in the house that's getting paid to be there to pick up garbage and stuff and do other random things so she doesn't get fired, pretty much, so she can have a job. You know? So it's like, man, you know, he had nothing to say as per like, this is why I felt she should have been gone, other than really like, she's having smecks with the boss and she hurt my feelings with the smishmortion. And it's like, isn't that the point of the show? To talk about topics? So if she has a different opinion on you than you on this topic, even though it is emotional for you, like, this is why you want someone to be gone? Like, and he said it many times. They're like, well, I mean, I didn't want her fired, but like, you know, if she wasn't there anymore, pretty much, like, I wouldn't be upset. That's pretty much saying I wanted this person fired. Like, I want their whole way of putting food on the table, to put a roof over their head, to, you know, be able to save money towards retirement, which, you know, it comes a lot faster than you think. You know, how many times she says she's not getting any younger. She wants to have kids. That's why she's so, you know, honored and happy to become, you know, fall in love with Andy and then get married. They're going to work on a family, all this stuff. Like, she's thinking about her future. And it's like, here you are over cameras not switching fast enough and her having a disagreement with you on Schmishmortion, and you wouldn't have minded if she didn't have the ability to put a roof over her head, food on a table, and live, pretty much. How is that different than any leftist trying to cancel people?
Well, and he definitely held a grudge with that too, because he talked about later how when the HR lady came in and they started saying, "Hey, he says she said she said Lydia was a liability." He expressed like some jubilee over, "Hey, the show's going to start back up and she's not going to be there." And
Yeah.
then that never happened. And he
Yeah,
said,
that was after the dinner where
yeah,
supposedly Tim was saying, I want you back on IRL, stuff
mm,
like that.
yeah,
I'm telling you, man, like, I don't know when you know, after we've talked about this, I think in depth here, when I think of foundational, existential, cognitive things that either sing or don't, on Adam's side, I'm not hearing the song, man. I'm really not. And on
There's no
Tim's side,
harmony.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not like, I really like, you know, the way I said at the start, like, my bias with Adam is there has been such cognitive dissonance for me with him, you know, ever since I first started seeing him on TimcastIRL and really watching him after that. You know, it's not that I'm biased. I dislike the guy. I don't really dislike the guy. I don't think he's evil. I just think on this, he's being really messed up. You know, when it comes down to people putting food on the table, to me, that is one of the worst things you could do to a person is take that away from them, unless it's warranted. You know, like someone's robbing the company, fire 'em. Easy peasy. Someone hurts someone, like physically, you know, fire them, easy peasy. Someone's yelling at coworkers and stuff, like, yeah, have a talk, and if it doesn't change, then yeah, get rid of them. Like, everyone's got to do their part and be a part of the whole thing, you know. But man, it breaks my heart too, because I don't think their show was bad. You know, them together. I mean, I feel that, like, you know, I think we talked a few weeks ago. We were talking about Adam, right? Like on a personal phone call between each other,
hmm
and I was saying,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was like a few weeks ago, right before we
Yeah.
did the first episode, and I was saying about how, like, you know, Adam did like argue a lot with Tim, and at that time I was more so feeling like, because I think my opinion back then was that, like, yeah, I feel like Tim didn't want people to argue against him, and that's why, you know, the same thing with Ian and stuff. And I do feel like at that time, that was a definite dissonance on my own self. that I was looking at Tim more so that he was controlling. And I do feel he is controlling. I do. I do feel he does try and drive his show where he wants his show to be. But at the same time, I think now after his explanation, I do look at him more so as a CEO now than I do as a YouTuber. Because he's not really a YouTuber. He really isn't. He is a CEO. He's the head of a company. So looking at those shows and the way he is kind of trying to drive the conversations and stuff, there is a lot of times where the people are saying things, and I could see he's trying to, bring a topic together and move things. And when I think about some of those guests, I mean, they're not really pushing back on him changing topics and pushing topics. Not really, So yeah, he's trying to move the show.
Well,
I don't know.
And then Tim, like kind of hearing his side and everything, I actually think Tim might value friendships more than people realize, because you cannot just go everyone, because like we were talking about before, Tim seems like he's more in control. He cuts Ian down. He used to cut Adam down, but you don't just have people that you're friends with and do that kind of stuff for without being able to push against them and have arguments. And it's not like it was every single night they had this big blowout argument, but actual people, actual genuine people that you value, you'll point out when you think they're wrong. And you might be wrong, but you'll still have that debate with them or argument with them. And sometimes it'll get heated, sometimes it'll just be nothing. But at the end of the day, you're still buying a $2,000 bottle of bourbon for the guy, and saying
the guy,
hey,
after months he was conveying bad things about you. Like, that was
while on the payroll.
Yeah, while on the payroll to do nothing for you.
Right. And to build his own competition to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a bit too much, considering like he's not really competing against him because he's much lower level, right?
He was using the similar name. He was using TimcastIRL at the time.
Like I'm not trying to overcredit him, because it's like obviously he's a much smaller channel.
Yeah.
Well,
and then he did try and convey that he came up with the AdamcastIRL name, and it's like, I do remember TimcastIRL existing before Adam. Like, the IRL channel was going to be Tim's, like, traveling out IRL in the real world,
I think the
like,
Adamcast thing was kind of like the Shimcast. It was just kind of a funny, jokey thing, and then he latched onto it.
Well, yeah, because Adamcast did originally come about when he did cover the show for Tim, like for, I think it was like a week or something, where, it did, and I think it came from the audience, to be honest with you. I think they were the ones who came up with the Adamcast idea, which then later became the Shimcast, for Seamus, who's another one, cognitive dissonance, a lot of that with Seamus, but I have a feeling that'll be for a later date, and we'll see what what occurs with that man. But that's another one, a lot of like Adam to me. A lot. He sings like Adam to me a lot of the time.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that sometime, because I haven't.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I do like his work. His Freedom Tunes is. I'm a big fan of Freedom Tunes. I'll tell you that much. That's
not so much.
No.
Well, he started his own vlog on our podcast on Rumble, right?
Oh, really?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he started it.
I didn't know that.
A week ago or 2 weeks ago. I saw it in the promos. So he's doing his own personal podcast twice a week, where he goes over. Topics.
I was wondering why he hasn't been on Cast IRL for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with it. But all right, so let's wrap up the Adam stuff. It's my final thoughts on it is it's heartbreaking. I don't like any situations like this. I really don't. Me personally, I like being good to people around me. I like doing for people around me. I believe in supporting people. I believe in just like, if your existence is to just be good to others, do for others and not be for one's own self, that's the best. I mean, not be for others at the detriment of yourself, but just be good to people. And so in this situation, it does break my heart that I do feel that their show was good. I will, like, I'm not trying to say anything against Adam. I do feel that Timcast IRL back then was a good show. I liked the chats on aliens. I liked the chats on conspiracy things. I liked the jams on Fridays, and music was being made from that. Like, content was being made. And after this situation, it just breaks my heart. Because at the same time, if we go just middle of the road on this and say both are technically right, maybe Tim could have handled the whole situation better. But at the same time, how could he? This isn't a friend situation. He's a CEO of a company.
Yep.
If he's handling the situation, it has to be handled. So I can understand him not wanting to be a part of the situation, because legally he can't just go in there and as a CEO say, like, hey guys, could you just work this out? Like, because then, Lydia could sue him. If she's getting yelled at to the point of tears, she could sue him. So if she is as bad and as Tim hungry as Adam tries to convey, so Adam's trying to set up Tim then to get sued for what could be millions of dollars, could be a very public lawsuit. I mean, the world is very happy to knock Tim down. This dude is on a constant state of defense. People are looking for his address. People are doxing him. They're sending SWAT teams to him. How many times? 15 times? Oh, we've lost count at this point. How many times the guy's been swatted? And nothing comes of it.
He doesn't talk about half of them.
Yeah. I mean, so who knows how much stuff truly happened behind the scenes and is happening till this day, and you think about how much money he has tied up on these hopes of things he wants to build. Flagrant, you could probably understand, is like when you have hopes on things you want to build, it's very tough if you don't know if a month from now the thing that's going to fund you to be able to do all these things is going to exist. So it's like, when I think about it from this standpoint, it's like it breaks my heart that something I feel was great. It's like, I look at the situation and it's like the existential existence of factual evidence and just, building blocks of situational cognitive resonance or dissonance. On Adam's side, I have really nothing but dissonance. And on Tim's side, I do have some dissonance. I do feel like, yeah, he's not talking about everything. He didn't cover the Lydia thing at all, But at the same time, Tim said, well, no, you guys said, not Tim, you guys said it. If with the NDA, if someone outside of the NDA mentioned something, now it could be talked about. So if he mentions stuff about the Lydia situation, now Lydia can talk about the Lydia situation. So keep her on the NDA maybe. So maybe there is something there, But at the same time, who Tim's kissing matters not to me as long as it was consensual. If it wasn't consensual, sure, get it out to the world. If it's consensual, like, Adam, shut your mouth, man. Has nothing to do with any of it. He's trying to convey, that had something to do with why he got fired with the whole Lydia situation. But then at the same time, you admit you yelled at the person. I'm sorry. If you work in a Target and you yell at your coworker, you should be fired. Plain and simple. You yelled at your coworker. You admitted it yourself. And now you're going to say, you got fired because of a smexual thing. It doesn't sing. It's cognitive dissonance. And it breaks my heart because stuff like this shouldn't be. He shouldn't have made this whole video talking about the whole situation. There was no need for it. He has a channel with plenty enough people watching him that was funded by the guy he just tried to throw under the bus. And I feel the only factual bit of information that I feel he was able to get out of it is two things. One, maybe he did want to get it off his chest because he does seem like an emotional person. Maybe. Second, he got a lot of super chats. It's a lot of money. Maybe he just wanted a payday. I don't know. That's complete
Drama is a
speculation.
grift.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Nick Rakaida situation. All the of LawTube made plenty money. And then on top of that, even people outside of the Law Tube community that just make clips have channels that are getting tens of thousands of views. And they, very worthwhile. Honestly, their clips are very well done. They cover all the topics well. So I'm not Alicia and Law Nerd clips. All of you, honestly, you're awesome. I do appreciate your channel. I watch your videos. Hi, and I click like. Just saying. But like, yeah. So, that's my final thoughts. You guys go. So,
Go ahead, Crash.
No, you go, because I'm gonna go with the transition. I got a perfect transition to the next topic.
Oh, okay. So with everything fleshed out more, something else that's not I was already leaning towards Tim, but now I'm even more in his corners because Adam brought up a lot of moral arguments against things that were wrong and everything, and how he said it was reprehensible that Tim and Lydia were doing whatever behind that closed door, even though he didn't know what it was. It just didn't sit right with him, and he would never do that. Like, well, then why did you stay, dude? So
yeah.
to me, that's like an argument that the money was worth more than his values personally. And I don't think I just don't see, well, I can't say most people who have that type of mindset don't make it. It's true to a degree, but you also see plenty of grifters out there who do make it, and they make a lot more than they probably should if people knew the truth about every single instance of what they covered or talked about or made their money on. But I've been in that place where you've had people say things and people assume things, and then it might take years, nearly decades, for things to come out where people are like, oh, you were right. It's like, how do you can't prove a negative until either some admission comes along or people find out, there's way more to it than there should have been, or there's way more to it than what people know about. And so I definitely resonate more with Tim, where it's like, hey, this shit sucked. It wasn't any fun. I tried to do the best I could with it. And like you said, he's definitely the CEO now. He has, like, his employees have to understand that, yes, friendship behind the cameras and behind the business stuff is completely different than what happens during operating hours and things that involve the business. Like, you have to be able to separate that. And that's something I dealt with when I was a supervisor. It's like, you've got these employees and they have these good characteristics and you get along with them generally when you're just shooting the shit. But when it comes to certain business things, they don't like being criticized. And that's an unfortunate truth behind any business that you are in charge of or have some say over. And it's really hard for people to separate those two things. And so, to me, just like you said, all the cognitive dissonance arguments that we brought up, I'm definitely leaning more on the Temp side. Like, aside from the lawsuit, I don't think and he didn't touch on anything with Lydia, but he also mentioned like lying about friends and family. So I think he was in a vague way trying to get that out there without going into any specifics, because he doesn't seem like the person who'd want to be drag Lydia into something, because even if he didn't think she was doing the most stellar job, he doesn't just openly trash people either. And he, like you said, he doesn't want to be a drama channel. He doesn't farm drama. He's a news guy. That's what he's done. That's why he's got the podcasts and the shows that he's got now. That's why he's building up the company he's building. That's what he knows. That's what he's good at, and he can do it pretty damn good, whether we want to admit it or not. Yeah, it just like I said, it's like the truth is a little triangle being played, and all you hear is a cacophony from the rest of the orchestra that is just drowning the truth out. From Adam's end, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that just the added context, especially what Tim gave, really does shift my opinion quite a bit. Coming into this, I consider myself more middle of the road because I hadn't finished Tim's video.
Are you gonna watch the rest of his video now, like in excitement to see like?
Yeah, I want to see what else that I've missed, because I still have like a whole other hour left to watch of it. He streamed basically for 2 hours, right? Or over 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there's more in there that we didn't even get to. But I mean, and these are things that I don't expect Adam to come out and say any of that is a lie. I don't think he'd be able to refute any of that. You know, and then some of the stuff that he talked about, he basically admitted, yeah, he lived in the house. Didn't realize he had a salary. Wow. Like, one of the funny things that he kept saying last night was that he was so confused about Tim's behavior. And you know, I think he's right about that. It is very confusing thing to have someone who's constantly disparaging you, but to be this generous to them. I'm not entirely sure what to think of that. I mean, well, I can say that I've been generous to people who haven't treated me well before in the past. I think that's something I've learned from, and perhaps that's something Tim needed to learn, is having healthy boundaries when people are pushing on you. Like, at some point, you do have to draw a line, and you can only being generous is really enabling to, you know. And with that, I'm going to get us into the next.
Wait, before we do that, anyone watching, honestly, if you've gotten this far into it, please do go into the comments. You know, like, please do. Like, I mean that earnestly. Like, we need for this thing to grow, we need you watching to join in with us. So share your thoughts. You know, you are a part of this conversation. You're not just sitting and listening to three guys talk or watching us talk. You are a part of the conversation. So please do. If you're a new person to the channel or even someone who watched the first episode, please put a comment down below. What are your thoughts? I genuinely want to know. I will genuinely be looking at the channel and trying to reply to all comments and everything. So please do. Go down below right now.
Well, and it's not just that. Like, we all either, the people in our spheres, all either watch or talk with Tim or Adam, like, or have had interactions. Like, Chrissy's had interactions with both of them. She's been around both of them. X-Ray Girl's been, she's been on F&T with Crigler. Crigler's been on there. Like, probably most of the people who would watch this know exactly who they are and do have an opinion on it. So getting it out there, because like I said, a lot of stuff is speculative. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, but yeah, you never know who might bring up that one point that you're like, oh, okay.
Well, you know, one thing I think, just one last nail in the coffin, I would say, of what Adam could or should do is he has the NDA papers. He claimed that in those papers, it would give ownership over of music that he himself wrote and his own shows to Tim. If Adam wants me to lose a massive amount of my cognitive dissonance, he has to show the papers. After everything he just said, if he wants me to lose a massive amount of cognitive dissonance, he needs to show exactly on those papers where it says he will give up ownership of his own property. Just saying.
Okay. Do I need to retransition?
Put up or shut up, Adam. Yeah.
Do I need to? Because we kind of got.
Cover it.
Okay. Well, I was transitioning, and then y'all got on the other topic.
Did you suddenly feel a tightening in your chest that slowed you down?
Honestly, what was really interesting about that documentary, I guess I should mention what it is.
What documentary do you speak of?
So there was a documentary that had premiered on Twitter and is also available on Rumble, called Died Suddenly. And if you don't know what that's about, it's pretty self-explanatory. And of course, it is alleging that a certain medication delivered with a particular method to the arm may be at the root of it. And one of the very common things that I saw, and I guess this is what happens when you have a stroke, a lot of the videos that they portrayed of people dying suddenly was often them going off to one side, sometimes they go in a complete circle before they fall over. I mean, my thought was that is that a stroke, and it would make sense if it's blood clots, and it does get into the blood clots that they're finding in these victims. I'm not entirely sure because I'm not a medical doctor.
So I haven't had a chance to watch the whole documentary, but as far as the clots, I watched a thing with Steven Crowder where he had on the mortician, and
Mm-hmm.
the things they're pulling out of people who die suddenly from undetailed or specified complications, but
Well, the
have
things they're saying they're pulling out.
yes, the things they're saying they're pulling out are not blood clots. So a blood clot is basically your platelets get bunched up and it creates a gooey substance, and that is considered a blood clot. The things that these people are showing that they have pulled out of people who have died suddenly and undergone a certain medication, they are kind of like a white substrate. They fit the vessels like a blood clot would, but they keep growing and extending. It's more like a. Have you ever seen the diagrams of plaque buildup in an artery or a vein? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, and it follows the whole course, but it's building up a completely separate material than a composition of your blood and platelets.
Yeah, they said it was fibrous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
being squishy and easy to break up with a little bit of pressure, it's more like
Mhm.
calamari. It's
Well,
it's
isn't
more
like a
flexible
blood
and
clot?
tough.
I isn't so like a blood clot's kind of like the equivalent of what blood does like after you get a cut, right? Like when it kind of like dries up to cover a wound, pretty much. Like the clotting is kind of a similar kind of process as that, but it's just inside your veins, pretty much.
The big difference is it's not actually dry. It doesn't get to that phase because it doesn't get
Hmm.
oxidized.
Hmm.
So it's more like a slime. It's kind of like a gelatinous slime that builds up, and it's yes, kind of like what happens like right after you get cut and you see like it starts to thicken. It's more akin to that than
Okay.
the dried, scabby, scaly.
Now,
Yeah.
I believe that also, in addition to these fibrous buildups in the arteries, I believe some of the morticians have also said that there were also like blood clots, like what you're describing. I didn't put that together until you described it. That in some cases, they would say they were draining the blood, and a lot of it would come out very just sludgy.
Well, they
Hmm.
were pulling out things in the documentary that looked like red, like you explained, like the
Yeah.
gooey kind of redness in there, and it was they weren't stringy. It was just it was all connected throughout what looked like the artery. So when they're pulling it out, it was all red and gooey, but it was all connected, and it would break apart. It's just that I guess since it was all clumped, and gooey together, it had that stickiness to stay together. So there were clips where they were showing like pulling it out of this long artery, but then there was also the white stuff. And then when they were draining the body by running the fluids through it, you saw like the blood was very just like it was almost like powdery. It looked like sand and water kind of, but like a reddish kind of like iron looking sand,
Hmm.
on the table. So like yeah, they did show what I guess they explained as clotting, I guess, but in a weird way, the cloud.
So the powdery red iron looking stuff that can
Mm.
occur if you completely block off an artery or a vein and there's no more blood flow through that particular section, because then
Mhm.
all of the material in there will get dry because there's no
Okay.
more liquid
Oh,
being
it's
pushed through. It's completely
because
blocked
your
off at
blood's
one end.
basically a
It,
liquid solution,
yeah,
right?
it's
It's like if you
mostly
took the water out
water
and leave the
and
salt behind. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so then
because
when someone dies, does all the blood naturally then just clot? Like,
yes,
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
by the
Yeah.
time
Okay.
someone dies and gets to the funeral director, I mean, wouldn't that be enough time for these long clots to be made in the arteries?
It uh, it would start clotting, but it would take. You got to also think. So the reason it dries out when you're say you get a blood clot in your arm and you go about your day-to-day activities. The the vessel walls and the cells around that vessel can still absorb the water that's inside that particular compartment. When you die, your body it just stops functioning. So everything that's there just kind of sits there. It would eventually dry, but it would take a very, very, very long time.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not like a situation where it's kind of like, so I guess so it is plausibly a sketchy situation. That's my way of circumnavigating.
Yes.
For the YouTubes, click like, leave a comment, and
Yes, and
subscribe.
vaccines are 100% safe and effective, and you should talk to your doctor before you receive yours.
The Timcast way of doing it. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk to your doctor.
Yes.
I don't
But
know.
don't be afraid to get a second opinion either.
Yeah, always second opinion. Always
Yeah,
second opinion.
It's like Tim says, if you think your doctor's an idiot, go find another doctor. Like I think a lot of people forget they have the power to do that. You do not have to see just one doctor. Go see other
Right, because
doctors.
what did you call the last person in their graduating class of medical school?
Yeah.
Doctor.
Wow, yeah.
Somebody's doctor.
So-
Hopefully not yours.
Wow. Yeah. That's true. But I always people they don't use this word anymore for doctors, and it's actually why I use it for myself as a person in practice of philosophy. A doctor's office is called a practice. They're in the practice of medicine.
All
They're
medicine
not
is a practice.
Exactly. They're not in the facts of medicine. They're not. They're practicing it. So that's actually what inspired me as a person with a degree in philosophy to not say I am a philosopher. No, I'm in the practice of philosophy. You know, if you watch the Timcast stuff before, I don't like saying one way or another, but I like to convey theories upon existential facts or thoughts or existential existence of things. So in this topic, what is the existential existence? We have people that exist in a field that are the final step in the process of life, pretty much. They're the last person to deal with you as a person before you're put in a box and then you're never looked at again. Or maybe you're burned to ash, or, whatever your final step is. They're pretty much the last person to really, truly deal with you at a level at which I don't think anyone in your entire life will probably get to experience you. Maybe a doctor, like we're talking about, a doctor who might be second opinioned, and not be chosen, a doctor who's practicing. But the funeral people are the last people, and they clear your body out, they take things out of your body, and they get you ready to get put in that box. So they're looking at you in a way that even a doctor probably won't be able to, because the level at which they look into your body will kill you. And a doctor is not supposed to do any harm. That's their Hippocratic oath, right? So it is very fascinating that when these people, the last step of your life, you've got a doctor who pulls you out of a hole, and then a funeral director who gets you ready to go into a hole. That's your start and your end. So when these people are saying there's a lot of things that we're seeing and a lot of things like this that don't add up, cognitive dissonance. We're going to use this word in every single episode now. Cognitive dissonance there. It is very fast, but it is hard to talk about because this is going to get uploaded onto YouTube. So what can we fully say?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing that the super safe and effective vaccines are related to are Tony Fauci, who was deposed Wednesday. Did you guys hear about this?
I did not. Didn't know he
This
was
is
getting
new to me.
deposed again.
He got deposed and questioned, and he had a lot of memory lapse and couldn't really cite he did. I don't think he cited one scientific paper related to the reasons they made their decisions for the lockdowns. He forgot who the head of the WHO was, or not WHO, but the Eco Health Alliance was. He forgot a lot of things regarding policy decisions when it came to lockdowns and how we handled the pandemic. So there's apparently there's going to be a hearing in front, and it will depend on the judge, but apparently that can be very frowned upon, and the judge will encourage a witness to jog their memory.
Hmm.
So maybe we can at least get some kind of not circle back, wibble wobble.
Wait, so it's a so who deposed him?
Is
It
this in relation to
was
some lawsuit,
yes,
criminal charges?
yes.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the attorney generals of Missouri and Indiana uh, are filing suit against Biden and the Biden administration. And
Oh,
Oh,
they're one of the
for
other things
for
that's
what, the mandates?
yes. And
Okay.
one of the other things that they're going to bring up too is also amount of the amount of reports that were self-entered into the VeriSafe or VSafe system, which was the adverse event recording system that they encouraged people who got the vaccine
oh,
to.
VAERS, VAERS,
No,
VAERS,
this was an
right?
app. I think it was tied to VAERS, but it was a separate app for just
Okay.
the COVID-19 vaccine.
Oh, was that
But who made it?
is that the app for
It was
that was basically your vaccine card?
no, no,
Or are you saying it was linked to VAERS? It was for reporting
it
to
was
VAERS.
it was for reporting specifically for people who downloaded the app and reported any adverse reactions to the vaccine
Okay.
that they received. It wasn't for any other vaccines. It was specifically for the time that when they rolled out the COVID-19 vaccines for people to download onto their phone that carried their information, and they could report any side effects that they experienced during that time.
Yeah, but who owns the app though?
That was I can't remember if it was the CDC or the NIH or DHHS. Looks like it's CDC.
Hmm.
Wow.
VSafe was a CDC app. VSafe is a
Wow.
safely monitoring system that lets you share with CDC how you or your dependent feel after getting a COVID-19 vaccine, and that is from cdc.gov.
Good thing about that is then every bit of information about that app should be public.
Yes, it should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Because if it was
So,
privately made, then people would be like, but the private company.
yeah, no, there's no way around this. They're going to have to disclose those records.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I
This is
mean,
going to be exciting.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, this day and age, I'm just gonna say there is scenarios that I could see where nothing comes of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just
I
throwing
feel
it
ya.
out there.
Believe
And
me, I feel you.
if something does come of it, it's not going to get reported because Big Pharma owns every major media outlet that there is in existence. 75%
Well,
of all.
we can't say they own it, but they definitely buy a lot of advertisement
Yeah.
on all
They are
of
big
them.
financial contributors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
75% to the tune of 75% of their advertising
Hmm.
was pharmaceutical drugs.
And I mean, I'm not saying that there was any situation that would have led to them have made a massive influx of money, but I will say that I have a relative that did go and get a shot like a year and a half ago or so. And on their medical billing, they saw that their insurance was billed $200 for that said shot. So you imagine in a city like New York that I live in with 9 million people, let's say just in the 5 boroughs alone, and at what, an 80% shot rate, for, I don't know, just a shot that had happened, times that by 200, Not, so we're talking 7 million times by 200. What is that? 1.4
140.
billion.
Yeah.
No, yeah, 1.4 billion. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
$1.4 billion. That's just New York. That's just the 5 boroughs of New York.
Right. I
Take a whole
believe the
country of
states
300 million plus people.
we're at about 65ish to 70ish%.
Yeah.
I believe.
Now, I'm not saying every state's going to charge the same amount. Every state's going to
Yeah.
charge different amounts. Probably even every borough is charging different amounts. Like the way these medical things, the insurance companies work is one insurance company has a deal in this insurance company, or they have a different deal in this state or this borough or this place. There could be all different charging amounts. It could also be what can that insurance company pay? What's your copay? What's your this and that? So it could be different amounts. I'm not saying that, guaranteed 60% of the country, 170 million people, give or take, maybe 180 million for 60%. Well, 50% is 150 million. Let's say I have 300 million, even though we know that we're 20 something million people in the country that we know about legally. And we've been having, I'm just saying, people have been just happening to show up at maybe 10,000, 20,000 people a week or month or so. We don't know over the past 2 years or decades or who knows, so maybe we're 400 million people, but you know what though? You know what? I stand corrected, guys. I'm sorry. Those that show up randomly don't count into the counted numbers because they're not forced to do the same thing that the people who are legally here do.
Correct.
So that 60 or something percent really just includes the people who are here,
I think rough estimate is about 200 million people have gotten vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that cannot be disputed is that once the CDC approved 15-0 that the COVID-19 vaccine be added to the recommended childhood immunizations to attend public school, they upped the price from $30 a vial to $110 to $130, depending on where you're located.
I mean, if you think about what was that medication? I think it was an AIDS medication that there's a guy currently, I believe he's in jail right now for taking that medication and taking it from like a very cheap price and bringing it up to like $1,000 per pill. And it was like
AZT?
No, it wasn't AZT. It was another.
Oh no, that was the other Fauci drug. Right.
It might have been a Fauci. No, I don't think it was a Fauci drug because the guy who went to jail for it owned the patent on it, and it wasn't Fauci. But who knows? I mean.
Oh no, I meant like AZT was the Fauci drug.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That
which I mean had no side effects whatsoever. Just saying, no side effects to AZT. Did not cause more harm than good. But you know what? AZT was in the play Rent. Just saying. It
was
so
also
we
in
like
Dallas
AZT.
Buyers Club.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. None of those characters died. Angel. Never forget. That broke my heart when that happened in Rent. I love plays. Little sidestep here, but I've been to a ton of plays on Broadway. They do a deal called Student Rush tickets. When I was younger, I used to go to plays all the time. I love Broadway. I love musicals. But we learned last week, I know how to play a lot of instruments. I love music. And hey, musicals got music, don't they? So a friend and I used to go. I've seen a lot of plays, except for Rent. Always wanted to see Rent. Very unfortunate. Very sad about that.
Yeah, I've never. I don't do musicals.
Really, they're wonderful.
Yeah. Wait, I'm not.
I enjoy musicals.
I just date dudes.
Hey, no. I mean,
I got news for you.
The person I went to see a lot of those plays, did it turn out that person was gay? Yes, but you know what? I'm not, and I love them. I haven't been to see one in a long time though, because they would probably hate me since I'm not a leftist, nor am I a rightist. I'm a centrist. I'm a philosopher.
That's no different than some hardcore metalheads really like jazz.
Oh yeah, I was a hardcore metalhead.
Yeah.
I used to wear UFO pants and chain wallets and spiky bracelets. Oh, I was a hardcore metalhead. I guess I still kind of. I'm in the Hellfire Club. Just saying. But yeah, let's continue about this. This potential getting
Yeah,
your channel canceled on the second
on
episode.
an episode 2,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Did y'all happen to see the headline about the majority of COVID deaths now
Or from
Oh,
vaccine.
no.
having a particular status versus the status of not being that status?
No.
Yeah, I have heard about this.
What news was it on?
Shoot, I wish I had it bookmarked. See if I can dig it up. But essentially, that now the majority of COVID deaths have a particular status now, and those who did not partake in that choice are now the minority.
This is
So are we
in
talking about a
several different
status
outlets.
with? Was it a with or without kind of status?
Yes, you either have it or you don't.
So, as reporting from the Washington
you found it.
Post and the Daily Mail and Our World in Data and Scientific America and the
Oh wow, I got picked up.
India TV News. Hold on. This might be on the CDC too.
Wow.
But yes, apparently some people who took certain medications are contributing to the mortality rates much higher than those who did not take certain medications.
Wow. It's almost like humans were evolved to have this system in their body that's kind of like an AI, if you think about it, right? You know, where it teaches itself how to do things for the body that stop certain things from getting to do bad things to the body. And it remembers said things for a very long period of time. Sometimes it doesn't remember things as long. The AI sometimes has bad memory. A lot of times it has
And sometimes
good
the
memory,
bad things
though.
mutate as well, right?
Exactly. You know, it's almost like something like that existed and evolved over tens of thousands of years.
Well, when it comes
Weird.
to this particular issue, though, no, that's not what happened. That doesn't exist. The data's not there. The science says
Yeah.
that that's not possible.
And as we all know,
I
trust
mean-
the science.
Yeah, well, I mean, the science also does say that people who have a certain something, instead of, you know, this just insane thing that could have evolved over tens of thousands of years, but people who have something else, I mean, they're less likely to catch something. They are. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
Even though
Who knew? Who would
every
have guessed?
single, I mean, when I think about it, every single member of my family, you know, they have something and caught something just recently too.
And that something was
It
supposed
makes
to
a lot of
keep
sense.
them from getting the other something, right?
Yes, or even
100
transferring it from one to another.
Yep.
You know,
I-
even
Yes.
though all of them,
I'm gonna go with
almost like a unanimous thing. You know.
I'm gonna go with Tony the Science Fauci and say
That sounds like a
I'm gonna
WWE
keep-
wrestler name.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because he is the science.
Let's call him Pony Boy Fowl. Pony Boy Fowl. He's
call
Pony
it-
Boy Fowl.
Yeah, old Judge Fauci. He is the
Pony Boy
science.
Fowl.
I am the science.
I am the science. Okay, listen to me.
So
You gotta put the thing on. You put two of the things on, maybe three. I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Maybe back to none. Maybe we'll go back to none. Okay. I am the science. That hurts my voice so bad.
I bet.
this whole thing makes me forget about the climate crisis or a meteor hitting the earth or some cataclysmic
now.
eruption. My new favorite conspiracy theory of my own is we're going to create something and it's going to absolutely devastate every single one of us. Because, I mean, look at how long they did research on dangerous pathogens, and they're still doing.
They're still doing it, yes.
Not any specific pathogens. They especially not the most recent pandemic-related one.
We're not doing bioweapons research.
No.
Not at all.
But I mean, just the sheer amount of tomfuckery that goes into messing with creating deadly pathogens, and our saving grace is we hope some idiot doesn't mess up, like that someone doesn't have an accident at the workplace. It's I that's my new this is how we're going to die.
I don't know about
This is how we're going
one,
to die in
man.
Minecraft.
No one needs to even do that, though. There's so many easier ways to pull that off without risk to one's own self. You gotta remember, if you're part of these, bleh, I think it's very unlikely to do something as per a release, like letting a fart out without smelling your own fart and having it get into your own nose. There really is, I don't think that it's as easy to defend yourself against a fart biologically than it is to cause mass starvation, mass poverty, massive war, massive destruction of society. That could be done without risk to oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? These people are all, if there's a small group of people around the whole world, maybe aren't in a group together, but kind of think along the same lines, they're not going to cause the mutually assured destruction that would cause their lives to be hindered. But they can cause a heck of a lot of people to have, destruction without a hurt to themselves, and they could still have their steak and eat it too.
You just made me think of something very funny. I now view the establishment and the elites as that kid who goes around and just rips farts all the time and doesn't care who smells it, because everybody likes their own brand of shit.
Please don't make that move I just did the thumbnail, just saying. That's all I'm saying. I saw it as I did it.
Can we come up with a different name for the so-called elites? Zubeep made a great point on Twitter not that long ago saying, The what?
The farters.
The Fatas. I love it. I love it. See, Zuby made this great point. He said, I'm not calling someone elite who can't do a pull-up. And I agree with that. And
yeah, or
I'm on board with Fealty. Like, I do like, I mean, we can throw out other suggestions, but I do like it. The Fatas.
The farters.
The farters.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw your ignorant North Carolina tongue in there.
Yeah. The damn farters.
The farters.
I mean, to me, they're all just shit spewers anyway, so.
That's what farting is. You're sending gaseous poop to the noses of the masses.
It gives a whole new meaning to gaslighting, for sure. They know what they're doing. They just want to see if you know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then when you call them out on it, like, whoever smelt it must have dealt it.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous, especially
I think it's apropos.
Mm-hmm.
Apropos.
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 Yes.
The Fatas.
Yes.
So apropos.
The apropos of the farters. I like it. I like this. This is what I'm going to call them from now on. They're the farters.
Yes. Yes.
They really are.
We're going to make this guy.
But like, I really, I don't think that we've got CBDCs coming up. CBDCs. They're going to control the finance. They're going to be able to track everything we buy, sell, do. They're going to be able to control us. At a level even more than what China is doing. They don't need to release something like that. They really don't.
I'm not saying
they're destroying us anyway.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they plan to. I'm just saying I think that is a much more likely scenario now than even nuclear war. wiping us all out.
Oh yeah, I never really was worried about nukes, and I will never be really. That's mutually assured destruction. I do believe is a thing,
Mm.
you know. And if you're someone in power, you don't want to have to live in a world where it's like, oh yeah, you know that whole north coast of the U.S. I can't go there anymore because I'll die.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're talking what 500 years of not being able to go somewhere.
Depends on the
Mhm.
isotope. It could be anywhere from 500
Yeah.
to 30,000.
Yeah. So it's really like I do think that a lot of these people do not think in one lifetime. They do not plan in one lifetime. They plan in lifetimes. Because I mean, really think what's the quality of their life in their life? They're living it up. They've got money. They've got power. They've got land. They've got everything they could ever want. They're traveling around the world. They're experiencing the world. They're living a life. So when they're planning things out, they don't need it now. That's a normal person way of thinking, is the need of now. You need the food on your table now. You need the money on your table now. You need the money to pay for the roof over your head now. You need the food on your back now. You know, that's a normal person way of thinking. Or tomorrow or a month. Nah, these people, they can think three generations from now. They can think 4 generations from now. As long as the dominoes are in place, you know, these people could think long term because they have the time to think long term. Because their now is filled with whatever they want it to be. So these people, I do not think, are in the game of destruction of now. They're in the game of wanting power.
Oh yeah.
And accruing it over time. They don't care if they're getting one chip of power here and there. They're just noshing. They're
There's your thumbnail.
enjoying it like an amuse bouche. Oh God, you know, it's an amuse bouche for them. You know, it's an aperitif for them. You know, they're savoring their accrual of power. You know, so it's really in many ways, people would say I am black-pilled. I do think that quality of life is about to get more and more horrible. I do. Everything is pointing that way. Everyone says it, as Trump would say. But I don't think they're in the game of destruction. I think they're in the game of accrual. And that's a slow thing, not fast, you know? So I don't see the world ending. I see the world getting tedious and more and more of a struggle. I feel that the survival of the fittest is going to grow and become a necessity. So the ones not paying attention to anything, to bring it back to what we were talking about before, will give in to something that over time, as it's not a necessity anymore, as it's gotten all it can as per accrual of power. Because really, you think about it, that thing is less and less of a push right now, right? Because a lot of places exist that weren't doing a push or a push. You know what I'm saying? But the accrual of power was gained. It wasn't a ton. It wasn't everything. But I'm living in a place where I lost my power of right to work. And the mass majority of people where I live didn't care at all.
Yeah, because
Even though a lot of people here lost that right? 70% have it, supposedly. It's very easy to get the thing to pretend like you have it. Very easy. A lot of people have it, apparently, from what I hear. It would only cost you $400. You know, for something. So, I mean, really, I don't see destruction happening. I see that it was an accrual of power and, you know, a step was made. Some more was done by those trying to accrue and accrue and accrue. but I don't see destruction. And it really says something about humanity. Because really, how far back do you want to go? How far back do you want to go when the masses didn't allow this lurch, right? There's only, you go back to the founding of this country. It was a brief respite from the lurch of just accrual by the few. At
The
that time, yeah.
well, the big thing I see happening is I don't even think it's been an accrual of power. I mean, I definitely agree with you. They want to accrue power, but I think a big part of accruing that power is to keep people uninformed because it was much easier to do hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago. Now it's a lot harder, so I think they are being forced to
Is it
shorten
though?
their. Well,
I think I would disagree with that.
well, I think that plays into my whole black pill conspiracy about where the country is going because yes, the it's going to turn more into survival of the fittest if you want to have your freedoms and be able to survive without having to depend on those people who want to control you. But I also see that as uh, the ever looming day of reckoning because once they have that faction of people in specific areas and they like the CBDCs are going to be a very easy way to say, ah, here's where they are. And it's going to be way easier to get rid of them at that point. Because if you've got those people who can survive on their own and can teach other people how to do it too, that's a threat to their accrual.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that I don't think that we are yet going to be to the point of. I don't think it'll ever get to the point where they're going to be disappearing people fully. They're going to disappear the people who are actively trying to hurt them. But I mean, look at our modern age. Come out that like, oh, the drug industry. It's funded by sectors of government, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, they're in with the illegalities. It's only when you step over the line to actively want to hurt them directly that they seem to care. Or if they want to utilize you as a tool for something that they care. So I don't think necessarily with the CBDCs, they're going to be taking too much action against the people. They're going to allow you to do your illegal things. They're going to allow these secondary and tertiary finance societies. But, they'll allow your life to get tough. They'll allow you to starve. They'll allow you to become homeless. They'll allow you to hurt each other. That's what they'll allow. Keep on hurting each other. Keep on robbing each other. Keep on breaking into houses, breaking into cars, breaking into things, wrecking people's lives. Do it to yourselves. Why do they gotta lift a hand against the plebs
yeah.
while they accrue more power?
What I'm saying is it'll be easier for them to get the information they need to pinpoint those locations where they need to let that kind of mayhem ensue. So
Well, they're just
it's
gonna
not
let
a
that ensue everywhere. Their places
yeah.
are behind fences. Their places are in lovely islands on yachts.
Yeah.
You know,
Where
it's not
former
near us.
presidents can put on blue dresses and have very
Yep.
beautiful paintings done. None of our
Yeah.
presidents, obviously, but
No.
no, that would.
Definitely not. So it's a lot of people, even in like the crypto space and everything, they do have a black pill view on things, and like we're talking about from this documentary, you could look at it and say like, wow, we're in a rough spot. Look at these numbers. Look at this these existential things that are happening, and look at this documentary that's showing you something so horrible. And it's like it's that stuff is going to fade away, I think. I don't see people yet at the point where they're looking for some type of redemption of the bad, or rectification, I should say. I don't see it. I always think back to my business classes in college, because I minored in business, majored in philosophy, minored in business. And one of the business professors, the topic, just the populace. And the way they look at it is that people they're not smart. That's how they look at it. So people aren't smart. They're not informed. And I don't like the word informed, even, because I think it's been utilized almost like the word the science. Like, it's all of a sudden you're this infallible being. Like, oh, that person's uninformed, so they're fallible, but I am informed, so I am infallible. I cannot be wrong, but they are of the uninformed.
Well, I guess a better way is like, can you critically think, question things?
I don't even like that. Is it about questioning? I don't know. I don't think it's about questioning. It's about just knowing what it is to look at reality. The reality that your eyes itself can see. And trying to exist in as many realities as you can, right? To live. Some people, the only reality they know is the reality they're seeing on Twitter from those that are living. Well, I know the border, this is necessarily happening because, Savannah Hernandez went there, right? Have I been there? I don't know, right?
Well, yeah, but so people can be conditioned to a reality, but if two people are looking at the same thing and they both come to different conclusions, one of them is a better critical thinker than the other and can see reality for what it is, whereas the other...
What the thing is, the thing they're both looking at, an existential thing in front of their eyes that is actually existing in front of their eyes, or something on a screen or digital space?
Well, I mean, I think you could take it for either one. It just depends on...
I don't think so. I don't agree there. If we're both looking at a bush, we can have a different opinion on that bush. You could say it's a berry bush. I could say, no, those are just the seeds. They look like berries, but it's not a berry bush, right? So we can have two separate realities of that bush. I could say, I know that was a berry bush. I can even eat the thing,
right?
And say it tastes like a berry.
How do you get to the reality of what it is, though? You can't. You have to question. You have to be able to...
Well, yeah, you'd have to question enough to be able to to build a foundation of existentials. So you'd have to learn what plant cells are, and you'd have to learn everything you can about plants, right? To be able to know what exists, right? I mean, it's like Socratic method. I hate... something I don't like about philosophers is when they utilize the writings of other philosophers. I very rarely like to utilize, like, Wittgenstein said XYZ about the definitions of ways. I like philosophizing on my own. So I won't call it Socratic method. But the only way to know something is to be able to go around and test it against everything you could possibly test it against. So over time, you'll either be strengthened or weakened by everything you've tested it against. So if you want to be able to prove the plant, you have to test it against everything you possibly can. That's the only true way.
Or
and
compare
even at
it
that
to what's
point,
already been factually discerned.
No, well, to test it against maybe what's been factually discerned, but to test it against anything and everything you possibly can. And at the end of the day, it's still not at a level of infallibility that it is true. If you really think about it. We do need to be able to live and be able to have some form of finality on things. But at the end of the day, a human's life and decisions mentally on anything is nothing more than a theorem. And a theorem is not science, where it is not finality at the end of the day. I mean, if you go into philosophy 101, you're going to go into, and they're going to say, if you keep on tapping a table, does your finger go through the table? How do you know? Yes or no? Atoms
Oh,
are something that aren't necessarily like a finite surface. No, atoms
eventually you
aren't.
will. It might take eons.
Maybe you. But are you going through the table? Are you slowly over time taking the atoms of the table and dispersing them away?
Yeah,
So are
because it
you
creates
going through the
friction.
table? Well, you're creating friction. So are you going through the table insofar as you're taking the atoms and moving them? Or would going through a table mean that your atoms are passing by the atoms of the table without changing the table at all, but you're kind of just passing through it? Because if
No,
your atoms
you're
aren't
pushing the table's atoms out of the way, over
exactly,
or moving them to a
maybe,
different area.
possibly. How do you know? Can you see atoms at their atomic level?
I mean, actually, on atomic theory, I think that the atoms don't ever actually touch, right? According to that theory, if I understand it correctly, that it's the opposite charges on each other. If is what is the friction that we actually feel?
Okay. But then how do
Maybe.
your atoms form to make a human being that's able to manipulate itself and move and do all of these things? What does that mean? How do you prove that your finger's not going through a surface at all on the atomic level? What if one tap is, one atom distance through it? So how do we know anything at the end of the day? As a person in practice of philosophy, at the end of the day, how do we know anything? So how do we know really, that this video that we initially started talking about, where there's people talking about something that they're saying is happening, right? How do we know it's true? There's one guy that showed a spreadsheet and he was like, oh, the yellow color means this, something with, right? And the orange is something with and then this. And the white is something without. And the this and this. And he just did a quick scroll. How do we know? Then the rest of them, here's video footage of like, oh, yeah, here's some powdered liquid, right? Oh, I was trying to force this liquid through the thing and it wasn't going. Oh, it's going to squirt. Ooh. It's like me being something living without when it comes down to this thing, happily. And also when I say my family live with it, they never once have ever treated me like I should get. They just say that for themselves, they felt that was the best thing, and they fully supported me that I didn't want. Hey, it shouldn't be forced. But me as being some without, I'm just saying, when we look at these videos, when we look at these existential things existing online, when we look at the realities trying to be portrayed to us, at some point we need to start saying, what is the real reality? I don't know anymore. What is the real? I don't think that everything's going to end. I don't think everything's going to be destroyed. I don't think that. I think that there is a lot of people that want to make our lives hard. There are people that I do think that, maybe plausibly want to have less of us. Because to them it doesn't really matter if there's a lot of us or less of us or anything. But with this video that we've been talking about on and off, when I watched it, the one major thing, the concern I had is I have to look at it. I don't like to use the word scientifically, but there was a whole lot of conjecture, a whole lot of things that could have been the equivalent of stock footage being used. There's a whole lot of, I don't know what I am looking at, and people telling me what I'm looking at. And it's kind of like, look, I want to be with you. We do have, like you mentioned earlier, Flagrant, that the CDC and, with the news article we mentioned, there is a talk of that things with have a higher chance of things no longer being. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, we need to know, kind of in a way of something factual. Break it down. Talk to us like we are children and break it down to us,
So
to its atomic level. Tap us with your atoms.
one other thing about the documentary that and I guess it wasn't part of their purpose. They were focusing a lot on whatever these things were in the arteries that they were pulling out, right? But it would have been nice to have at least, I don't know, maybe an interview or some sort of breakdown of data associated with these medications, because the data is out there. And while I've gone through some of it myself and watched a lot of other content creators going through it, I have yet to see someone do a really comprehensive review of what of all of the data, because it's quite numerous.
Well, there's a particular reason for that though as well, because they've admitted they don't have the long-term studies on certain medications, and until they actually do those, then yes, as for right now, what some of those morticians are pulling out of people can be caused by something completely unrelated to any kind of medication. It could be a genetic mutation, but until they get the long-term data, you pretty much have to go with probabilities and to me, you'd have to go with what's most probable and makes the most sense.
Right. There's no pre-launch long-term data, but we've had this medication out there for a couple of years now, and data has been gathered just based on that being administered. And some countries have actually put together some pretty comprehensive data.
Yeah.
Israel, in particular, I remember, was very good about tracking their medicated patients and what happened with them.
And Israel
they were also very good at making their populace get as much of that stuff in them as humanly possible.
They were over 90%. Yes.
And they were also saying a lot of the same things that our news outlets are saying now, last year, if not before.
Yeah, they were sounding the alarm bell when their safety signals, because it was the fact that they were over 90% medicated made it very compelling, you know?
But it wasn't just that they were over 90%. They were also 4 tries in, 6 tries in of the same thing.
Yes.
They didn't just do
we
one
haven't even
round.
talked about that part. The fact that we're what, 4?
I think this will be the 4th. The 4th.
I'm trying to come up with another reuptake. There you go. I'm trying to come up with a euphemism for
the 4th turbo.
The 4th turbo. Oh, I love it. I love it
for your car.
Wow, it's like the 4th turning. Wow, I like that. The 4th turbo. Wait. Yeah. I mean, all I'm saying is, just like I can't know if my atoms of my finger go into the table in any way, shape, or form. I mean, like we say, it's a cognitive dissonance. Yet again, I love this term. But the cognitive dissonance is, like you say, is real. They are one of the most utilized countries in the world at doing this thing that all 3 of us, I'm guessing, haven't done. They've done it up to 6 times now. Yet they also have the highest amount of data on this thing. One of the highest amounts of data on this thing. How does that happen? How does a cognitive dissonance like that happen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
You mean cognitive dissonance as in, these certain corporations have all this information, but they don't want to tell anyone, or certain corporations have all this data, but they're saying something else?
No, neither of that. If this thing is causing all of this stuff that we've seen in this video, and you have a country that's a 90% of a thing that's done, upwards of 6 times to those 90%, and no one's screaming out that my uncle, my aunt, my cousin, my wife, my husband, my child, my this, my that, they're all gone. So what's the real percentage? What's the real outcome? This video makes it out like...
But
that's why I brought up the data point. Yeah, that's why I brought up the data point that there wasn't anything brought up on approximately even just the raw number of how many cases would be suspected of this occurring.
Well, I'm not saying that.
So
I'm
that
not
it could
saying
even be
that. What I'm
extrapolated.
saying is there's no speculation by people. If something's happening and it's being done 6 times, upwards of 6 times, and your family is disappearing, you're seeing all these things happening, and you're not screaming out, you're heartbroken. Your wife, your husband, your child, you're this, you're that,
Well,
gone.
you're making the assumption that everyone gets deleted though too, and that
Well, I would have to say that video, we're talking about the video, so we need to
Yeah.
link it to the video. And that video is making it out like the percentage of people that are going to experience something from this thing. Because why do you make the video if you're not trying to say, oh, these funeral people are saying in the video, we're seeing an uptick. We're seeing things that don't make sense. We're seeing things that shouldn't be in here that are happening. But when you look at a country that's got 90% and 6 tries, and we're not seeing an uptick of people starting to be like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Well, do we
yeah,
know
but
that
you
we're not
can't-
seeing an
I don't know.
uptick there?
yeah, and you
Do we
can't
know?
you
Yeah.
can't use a country that we don't have a direct information network from either, especially as stifling as news cycles
Well,
and narratives are.
I'm responding to Crash saying that they have a very high amount of information and studies, right?
Well, I'm saying that the data is. I know that the data is out there
Mhm.
because the companies who created this medication have put at least several sets of data. So they had their trials and they've had the follow up studies from when it was initially rolled out up to, and I've seen up to 6 months follow up.
From the medical companies or these?
Yeah, this or at least one of them. I've seen Pfizer's data in particular. I've not seen.
But hasn't a lot
the
of their
others.
data already been kind of shown to be not quite
A lot of it is
not
still
quite all there.
redacted.
Well, redacted, but if you look at the studies the way they were done, their entire blind group it wasn't blind.
Yes.
Oh
so
yes, and they would. I can't remember what article it was, but people who experienced certain issues during clinical trials were removed from the trials
Yeah.
yes, I
because
have
they
heard that as
wanted
well.
to keep
So,
a
I mean,
certain
That
threshold.
that kind of does throw I don't know, maybe a monkey wrench into what I'm saying. Also, you're absolutely right
Exactly.
that these shenanigans went on, and if it happened in one trial, there's what's to say that this didn't happen in the follow-up study that I'm referring to, or any of the other studies that I've referred to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how can any study be trusted? It's really like a matter of, it's like trying to parse through pieces of paper with data on it in a room with no lights. That's really, it's like,
Well,
I'm not saying, like, for anyone watching, it's like, I'm not trying to sit here and disprove the video. That's not what I'm trying to intend at all, because I'm actually on the side that I do think that there are problems. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, there's people that exist that are allergic to water. To water. Like, this is a real thing. There are people that exist that they cannot drink or shower because they will die.
People allergic to the sun.
Yeah, people allergic to sun. I mean, so it's really like, to say this thing exists, but as Jordan Peterson would say, it's absurd. But what is the percentage? That's what we need to know. What is the
Yeah.
percentage? Is the percentage worse or better?
I think if it were better, we would know about it. Because if it were better than what everyone's making it out to be, these companies would be like, "Oh no, no, no! Here's all our data, here unredacted. Here it is. It's way better than everyone's trying to make it out to be." To me,
I
that's
don't know.
that's an Occam's razor thing.
I don't fully agree with that. If a company was like, here's all our data, like the Tim Pool thing we were talking about before, right, with the NDAs. If one person has an NDA, now the person who doesn't have the NDA could tell the person who has the NDA information. Now the person with the NDA could go out and tell that information to the world because, oh, well, I heard from this person who didn't have an NDA. It makes null and void the whole NDA, right? So if that company now is going to be like, I'm going to be so out there with all this information. Look, the numbers are great. The numbers are great. Woohoo! Now the next time they make a shot that maybe the numbers aren't that good. Well, you were shouting on the rooftops that the numbers were great. Oh, now you don't want to? They lose their legal protections.
Well, no, for me, it would be the Occam's razor argument would be, simplest solution is often the correct one. And to me, if it were better, the simple solution would be just to let all the data come out from all the
That
companies.
wouldn't be simple. How would that be simple? How would that be simpler than having...
Because it'd be easier to say, you're wrong, here's all our data, and have all the companies present
How many
it,
medications did they make? How many medications have they made over the decades upon decades of their existence?
Yeah, but we're just talking about specific medications.
Okay. So specifically, you got Tylenol, this, that. You think about all the medications that were made. If they are just utterly forthright with the information, which legally I do think that they are supposed to provide all the information legally. I'm pretty sure when it comes down to what's in it, what it does, and side effects, they're supposed to be forthright with that.
Unless it's under an EUA, which lets them not put in certain long-term or side effects, which is why whenever certain people
and how many things are under that, or have been under that, or how many things do they currently have defenses of? So if you think about simplest situation, I'm sure it's a lot. I think there's a lot of things that have, hey, it's not just the things that already exist, but it's the things that could exist in the future. Simplest solution is keep your defenses. There's no reason for them to be forthright with anything at all. That's why they have the vaccine defense. That's why you can't sue them. Because then what would you be able to sue them for? It'd be like opening up the floodgates. They'd get sued for water.
I don't think in the long term, if things keep going the way they are there, I think their immunities are absolutely going to get challenged.
Well, yeah, if
it comes out that they had studies and they knew it was not as good as they quoted it to be, and
did they quote it to be great?
90% effectiveness, and it'll never get transferred.
It was 93 and 95.
Did they say that though in their documentation?
Yes. 93 and 95%.
The pharmaceutical companies
between
would say
the big two.
90.
Or did they say
effective.
that from what they saw from the study they did, they saw a 93% effectiveness?
But it doesn't matter because they still came out and said this medication is 90% effective at preventing X. That is a statement of fact.
From the study they did.
It doesn't matter though. You're still stating to a fact that before being released to the public that it will have this result.
You're editing.
How?
They said if they said it from the study they did.
Which
they didn't say from the existential world experience. They said we did this flawed study pretty much. And from that we saw 93%.
That's a total semantic argument that they can't use for any kind of defense. The reason they do those studies is because it's supposed to be a big enough study to where when released on a broad scale, it has the same general effect on every person that comes in contact with it.
On a broad scale, it doesn't matter how many people they bring into that test. Could be 1,000, could be 10,000. Once you put it out to 6 billion people, you have no clue what it's going to do.
But that's why they do the big group studies. That's why they have big clinical trials. But you can't sue them for
not knowing what's going to happen on the streets of Bangladesh.
But you can.
Where they don't know how people are going to treat the medicine.
But our pharmaceutical will not be the same as another country's pharmaceutical in the way because there's
a lot of countries that use the same ones. I'm just saying, you don't know what's going to happen. The second it leaves their warehouses, they don't know if it's kept at the right temperature. They don't know if someone's going to do some shenanigans. They don't know what's going to happen.
That's what the whole clinical trials are for, because you're supposed to get a large enough population sample.
How is it going to prove what trucker driver Joe is going to do to the medication?
Because though we're there are huge differences between people genetically. The way our systems operate are generally the same.
I'm saying trucker driver Joe. I'm not saying genetics, bro. Trucker driver Joe can ruin the temperature of that truck, and those medications could get spoiled, and then it's not going to do what it's supposed to do, right? So they say 93%, but truck driver Joe didn't keep it at the right temperature. So when it gets to Billy and Bob, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
That's not what I'm arguing at all. What they're saying is under ideal conditions of transport, creation, manufacturing.
Flagrant, if I may. This is why I'm saying when they say for the study, because the study is like, it's a control paper. It's saying from this perfect situation, because it's supposed to be from this perfect situation with a control group and with the testing group, this is the information we saw. They can't tell you what's going to happen in the broader world because you have so many things that exist in the broader world that will have an effect on the thing.
I get what you're saying.
They can't make an assumption, but that's, if I may, that's what protects them legally. The liability doesn't fall upon them because there's so much that can happen from their warehouse to when it gets into your body. So when they say, from our study, this is what we saw,
but
you can't take that as,
I get what you're saying. And if Trucker Joe was to drive it through and not let the refrigeration run out and it became a spoiled dosages, that's just one batch. Okay. But these companies also have to have
a batch that goes to 100,000 people.
Okay, but that's still not the general world population, and that's the reason that these places have to have specific protocols in place for transport, delivery, manufacturing. They can't like, if a shipment was going somewhere, say you had a shipment of milk going somewhere, the truck runs out of refrigerant, the milk gets hot, it spoils, people get it, bleh, the milk's bad, then that's when you can sue the trucking company for failing to meet protocols that were based on this manufacturer's protocols. But when a company says,
no liability on the shot company.
No, because how is it the shot company's fault? Or how is it the Moo Moo Cow milk maker's fault because a separate company delivered it here? But what I'm arguing is that these shots, or medications, when they're created, are supposed to act in ideal conditions. Everything is from start to finish, from the time it's first put into a vial to the time it goes into your arm. It is supposed to follow this protocol. If those protocols are met, and they make a statement of fact that if this is followed, this will work this way, that is a statement of fact, and they should be held liable.
That they said
that it's X% effective. They've made a lot of
study they did,
and the trials.
Do you keep leaving that out?
And the trials, which involve the exact people or groups, the species that you're giving that drug to.
In a perfect situation.
Yeah, like yes. Well, okay. Would there be anomalies? Sure, but then it's not that pharmaceutical company's fault that truck driver Bob tipped his truck over, or the refrigerant ran out, or something happened during delivery that could have been avoided, because then it's on the shipper's fault. It's on that transporter's.
Okay.
But
what we're trying to say here is, what is the reality of the situation? We're trying to say, to bring it back to what initially started this, is what is the existential reality of what does the thing work? Does the thing do bad things? If it does bad things, what's the percentage? What's the percentage of the bad things? Is it worse or better than the percentage of the bad things of things it's trying to stop?
But that wasn't the initial argument. The initial argument was they made statements of fact saying that it's 90% effective, and it wasn't. Yeah. It turned out that wasn't true at all. But they touted those claims, saying that it would be that effective. But have immunity.
I am with you that I feel it's not true. But is it a statement of fact? I would disagree with you. I think it is. When they say it is 90 this percent, 90 that percent, they're not lying to you. In the study they did, in the way they conducted it, in the things they did, the numbers at the end of the day came out at 90 this percent, 90 that percent. Now, what they're not saying is in that statement they're making, they fudged the test. They kicked people out. They unblinded their blind group. They did this and that.
But that's highly
at the end
unethical
of the
and
day,
a huge legal
doesn't
liability.
matter. Yeah, that's. I'm with you on that. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying their statement of fact is a statement of fact. At the end of the day, after their shenanigans, the number they had was 90 this percent.
But they can't legally omit factor like any kind of
Did
finagling
they?
that they did.
How do we know about the finagling we know about? Did
So
they hide it?
if a pharmaceutical company was to come out and say this drug is 90% effective when you take it, and they leave out the fact that it's only 90% effective
No.
within the first
Wait
30
again.
minutes.
Wait. Yet again, they would have to say, from the study we did, we saw 90% effectiveness. That's what I keep trying to say. You keep editing out from the study we did. That's what I'm saying.
But
I think what Fealty is saying is that that extra language does kind of absolves the culpability, because
no, not with the pharmaceutical company when they have to.
Because the thing is that Pfizer turned in that study. If we didn't know about, let's assume we didn't even know about any omissions or shenanigans that they did to the study. If they did that study and the numbers worked out to 95%, and then it got approved on that, I don't think they could be held legally liable for that statement of fact of saying that our study
But they have
showed
to set, they
95%.
have to set expectations.
No, they don't. They just have to say this was our study and this was the percentage we got from our study.
Yeah, they just
That's
have to. Yeah,
it's a messed up world, man. That's what I'm saying. It's a messed up world. But at the end of the day, look, words are important, man. They're powerful. They have weight. And the weight of that, the study we did showed XYZ is monumental.
yeah. That study did show 95%. The way that they calculated it,
it's in My Cousin Vinny. It's when he says to you the card thing, remember? They're going to show you it's got 4 sides. They're going to show you it's got this picture. They're going to show you that. But then when you turn it to the side, it's nothing, pretty much. That's what they do.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look that up more, because I don't think on a scale like a pharmaceutical company that makes medications for people to live on that they can just leave out very important information like that.
Okay, so
Now,
AZT
on the-
existed.
hold on,
You know, people are on pills that destroy them. Every single commercial you see about a pill has about 20, 30 different side effects that cause you to have another 5, 6 different pills that have 20 different side effects.
But you just said it right there. They have to list their side effects. Why wasn't this drug why weren't the side effects listed when they knew what they were?
How do you know
Did they know
knew
what they were?
They don't have the long-term
it's been
effects
proven.
of
They
this.
had a 7 or 9 page document, single space.
Okay,
over
so then they
1,000
provided
plus
the
side
information.
effects. After they
So
were
they provided
sued
the
for it and
information.
had to present it a year and a half later.
Okay, they were
Now,
given an emergency authorization use act.
Well,
yeah, I think under the EUA they wouldn't have to provide that, but I don't know that for sure.
I think there's a lot of
I
shenanigans.
mean, they
and I
created
think-
something in less than a year, released it to the public because they were told, hey, you can. Not because you have to or anything. They said, because you can. Hey, you're going to make $1.4
But
billion off of
emergency
the 5
use
boroughs of New
authorization
York.
has very, very specific guidelines too. There has to not be any countervailing treatments, and I think it has to be. There's got to be some kind of language in there about how it has to be a benefit instead of a detriment.
95,
I think
90
that-
something percent.
Right.
But also gives you all these side effects. That's not. See, to
If
me, that's
so hold on. As far as the side effects things go, what you would have to prove, what would have to be proven is one that they knew,
they did.
as in like it did show up in their study. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I would say there could be a case there, and it's not like the pharmaceuticals aren't used to paying fines for messing up their processes,
Yeah, they-
especially the
course.
legal processes. So this could be one of those things if they omitted important information such as known side effects when they submitted their documents to be approved for EUA. That
Oh,
could
they
be
definitely
something.
admitted
But
things,
what
yeah.
I would expect to come out of it is just more fines that don't even put a dent into their bottom line.
yeah.
It
By the
prob-
time
yeah,
that actually
yeah.
happens, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't it Pfizer that had to pay how many billions? Was it Pfizer that, or was it I
They're all
can't
paying
remember.
billions.
Yeah, I think whichever one did the OxyContin stuff or oxycodone. Um, they paid a huge billions of dollars settlement, but they made like 30 billion off of it. Like the offset, it was way cheaper for them to go and pay the fine than it was to actually say, oh, we see. To me, stuff like that is stuff that needs to be changed
So
if you want to see an actual
right
positive
there,
change in the world.
I think you just disproved your Occam's razor argument there, Flagrant. It was easier for them to withhold and be fined later.
Flagrant proved me right.
No, okay. Maybe you're right about that. Maybe
I'm
see,
gonna take a nap, people.
I have a bad tendency to give things the benefit of the doubt and be of good nature. But I mean, well, the thing about Malcolm's Raiders argument too is if it was true that it was this beneficial, it didn't have these side effects, it was good for you, and it was a huge benefit as opposed to detriment, wouldn't it be easier just to release that?
No.
So if it was easier, if everything was true,
Why would it be easier?
why
You're
go
a company.
through?
You're trying to make money. You're trying to make profit. Are
Do you think
supposed to
it's
cure
easier?
things?
Okay, but do you think it's easier to sell something that is proven or something that half of a population questions?
Over 60% of the population got this thing we're talking about right now.
A
In
lot
our
of
country
them
alone.
were forced.
Are you saying it wasn't
How many
easy?
were forced versus actually
Is it easier for
voluntary?
you to sell the best tasting ice cream with the most natural ingredients, or that everyone knows about, or is it easier to sell ice cream that no one really knows what's in it that tastes okay?
It's easier to sell the only ice cream that is allowed.
That
That is a great answer.
is true.
You don't have to care
Well,
about how that ice cream is made. You don't have to put any development into it. You don't even have to make it taste good.
no, that's not true either, because if only you could sell ice cream, but no one knew what was in it, do you think you'd have the same sales as
You're
selling
not the
ice
only one who
cream?
can sell ice cream. There's 3 different companies that sell ice cream in our country right now, right? There's 3 options. There's not one. There's 3.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, would it be easier to sell the ice cream that everyone knows what's in it and exactly what to expect, or ice cream that nobody really knows what's in it and they're told that it's the best?
It's easier to sell, it's easier to be 3 ice cream companies that all can think together and do the same thing that benefits all 3 of you equally.
It's easier to sell ice cream that's proven. That's my argument.
I think
It's
that the
easier to
answer.
sell ice cream that's proven to be the best ice cream.
What is the best ice cream, Flagrant?
The best ice cream is the ice cream that you make, not other companies.
Yeah.
That's
I'm fully
objectively
with.
true. I'm going to say that is objectively true.
Yeah. I mean, we've evolved for tens of thousands of years, like I said earlier, with this innate ability to figure out how to make our own things. You know?
Mhm. I mean, honestly,
And-
I think that's true for most aspects of your life. Like, make your own food, grow your own food, do your own repairs, learn that, because then you have to learn how to do it. And then you
Well,
teach that
you
to-
have to have the ability to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who just, they're not going to be able to. I mean, I do think, for my business classes, I don't fully disagree with the mentality that people are dumb. There are people that I mean, anyone watching, sorry, I may be one of the dumb people. To be honest, I don't know. I don't consider myself necessarily smart. I think if I was necessarily smart, I'd be living a very different lifestyle, to be honest with you. But I do think that there are things called NPCs, non-player characters, that exist in this world. I do think there's a lot more of them than anyone to admit. I do think that smartness and dumbness is like in the bell curve, where at the top middle is everyone just at a general state of just averageness, and then the bell curve comes down and then goes out. And then on these outer bells is where the intelligent, like the true geniuses are, and the true dumb people. So I think that a true dumbness, NPCs, and true genius is a very small amount of people. And then the bell curve, everyone is mostly just average. But that does mean that half of that bell is less than average and above average. And when you have the less than average people gaining a lot of power, then a lot of bad things can come to fruition, because there are people on this genius side, and they're the ones who rise to it.
I would say it's not even about intelligence as compared to laziness versus work ethic. Because
Well,
those
yeah, I
people
guess that
might
would
be
be a part of it.
dumb who are in power, but they definitely got there by doing something.
No, I don't think people in
Well,
power are dumb. I think they're intelligent.
But the people who are dumb support
yeah,
those who are
there
in
are
power.
Yeah.
there are lots of there are a lot of half-wits in power. They just
Maybe half-wits in certain ways, but I mean, they're in power. Are you? Are any of us?
I used to be. I used to have a position of power, and it's because I was able to work as hard as I wanted to. Like you can take, like, if someone wants, well, I don't know. Public office is kind of weird too, if we're talking about public office, because the person who knocks on the most doors is probably going to win. Doesn't matter how smart they are.
I think it's money.
That definitely plays a role, but I think it depends on the
I
area
think
too, though.
it depends on the race that you're running. I would say, like, if you're in a local
think you
race
guys-
where, when
Yeah.
you're in like a city council race where there's not a lot of attention from the big two parties, then yeah, it's going to come down to a lot of hard work. This is why libertarians do win at that level sometimes, is because
I think you're talking about the exception and not the rule.
yeah, no, it is the exception. I'm saying that, but the like once you get above anything above county level, then it's all money.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like
for state level, for all state level positions, for all national level positions, the big two pour in a ton of money, and if you don't have a lot of money to put up against it, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah, but isn't that because those are the positions that matter? If those lower level positions actually mattered, don't you think they'd put the money in there to get their people in there?
I think people have been brainwashed to focus too much on those positions instead of what they're doing. Locally.
Well, that's true too.
And that's a fair point, Fealty. That because it does happen in very specific locations. They're very strategic. Where when it comes to local races, where they actually put money in, it's strategic.
Yeah.
A lot of times, attorney generals are very sought after positions because the laws don't matter; they aren't enforced. You know?
Yeah. Especially when you don't want those laws to matter anymore. You know?
Exactly. I mean, that was
all of a sudden
thing.
$900 theft. All of a sudden could be a non whatchamacallit kind of crime.
Yeah.
Or non-prosecuted crime. That's
or you could pardon all federal marijuana offenses and not have anyone released. That you can do that too.
Yeah, that happened. That is the thing.
That is the thing.
Yeah. Hey, it's
Kinda
all about the
sounds like a
wording,
pardon.
right?
Yeah, our whole debate before, right? All about words, man.
No, definitely. Words are very important. I think. I don't know. To me, I should think there are uh, businesses or areas of humanity's endeavors and workspaces that you should have to be very specific, and you cannot omit, or you do catch the brunt of a Minecraft weapon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I find words to be very powerful and important is, I mean, look at Jordan Peterson. If that dude says one word out of like whack, then his entire theorem could be like thrown out, right? That guy must, you know, as a practicer of philosophy, like I listen to him speak, and every single word is thought out and planned and with purpose. You know, it's unbelievable. Words are important. Every single word has a meaning, a conveyance. It's data. If a word isn't used correctly, it's now corrupted data getting sent. It's like tech people will understand. It's packet loss. If
Yeah,
a
but
word is wrong, it's packet
Yeah.
loss.
what do you do when you are sending zero packet loss, but the terminal that's receiving your packets has a filter that is intentionally keeping out your data? Because
Well,
that's what
then that's
mostly happens
called
with Jordan Peterson. Like, he's very eloquent, very precise, and conveys his thoughts very well. People still don't care because they only hear what they want to hear, and they will take anything they can out of context.
yeah. Well, that's why the media is trying to create the mental firewall for those people so that they can't hear what he has to say. It doesn't have to be just from a technological standpoint of like taking him off websites. No, they're trying to actively create that mental firewall, that logical firewall. Ooh, that logic wall. It's a logic attack. That's a technical term in tech. You know, especially if you watch a movie Tron. Um, that's how they break into the doorway to get to Flynn and the girl as they do a lot attack on the doorway. Remember that? I'm sorry.
I've not
I'm a
actually seen that.
nerd.
I've not actually seen that movie, so I
Oh,
need
you
to
should
see.
watch Tron, man. Oh my goodness, the original one though, the new one. But they perform a logic attack on. But
Okay.
so that's what they're doing. They're trying to create the firewall for logic to not be able to get into you, the data to not get into you. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
really, you could break a lot of this. Elon Musk is actually the one who actually explained texting and the rate of data transfer. So he says with words, your data transfer is at the rate of the words you can convey and you speak. But when you speak, you're also transferring multiple layers of data. So you're seeing my face, you're seeing my eyes, you're hearing the inflection of my voice, you're hearing the emotion that's coming through. So there's multiple layers of data coming at you. It's almost like MP4. The MP4 is sending 2 layers of data, or maybe 3. So it's sending the video layer of data, and then it's sending left and right sound data when you're sending MP4, which then makes a video. You know, conveys a multi-layered form of data conveyance to another. Whereas texting is only text. It's only words. It's one single layer of data. So what they're trying to do is get you to do text only, like Twitter. Twitter is one of the most horrible ways of data conveyance from one to another because it's short. You only get 250 characters. You can use picture, you can use video, but it's not often used because it's not really easily to be done. Plus, also video can only 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It doesn't work. Or 220. And it has to be under a certain data amount. So you can't be sending 4K worth of 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, with this is they're trying to create the barriers of data conveyance. That's what it is. They want you to distrust. They want you to disbelieve. They want you to feel uncomfortable. They want you to feel like you're being challenged. They want you to feel like you're under attack. Remember, that's what a lot of things they were doing is words are violence. You're under attack. This person is attacking you. When they're using the wrong pronoun, they're using the wrong this and that. They want you to feel like, get away. I'm scared. You want you to shut down. They want your firewall to be up on data. You know, so that's why words are important. That's
It
why
sounds
they
like almost
do
like they
carry a lot
got.
of weight.
It sounds almost like a person who has gotten logic hacked. Like it's, because it's very interesting to watch when people respond. They get triggered, right? It's very emotional, very primal response that happens, and it's very much trained into them, almost as if their brain has been hacked to a degree, to where they can't hear what the person is trying to tell them. They just hear a word. They might hear a single word, could be like MAGA, Trump, or just a phrase that of something about like the medication is not so safe and effective. But it is, by the way. But talk to your doctor. um, but it's a very automatic response that, to some degree, I don't know that can be that they have the capability to control themselves. If you know what I'm saying. So when we were talking earlier about NPCs, I don't think it's necessarily about a level of intelligence. I've known people who I know are smart still have those responses, and I think even we might be susceptible to that to some degree if we really introspected and thought about it. I know
I wouldn't
it
consider
does for
that
me,
person
anyways.
an NPC then.
Okay.
Like a definition of an NPC is literally a person that has no thought, like individual thought. Like there have been studies, as people like to say, but supposedly there have been studies where people exist that don't have any inner voice in their mind.
Oh, you're talking about like is it like is that the equivalent of a philosophical zombie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
coming from me,
yeah,
the practicer of philosophy, like, yeah, it's
right.
literally.
That makes sense.
I
Okay.
mean, when
Can
you
I
think about it, is a dog having a conversation in their mind? Do you really think in a dog's head they're going woof 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 woof? Or a ferret or a squirrel? Is a squirrel going? I don't know. I doubt it. I think that they have emotions and stuff, but it's hard to have a brain that exists in a way that you can talk to yourself like and say things, and then picture what it would be like to be devoid of that. But those things exist and they survive and they live and stuff. Like, I don't know,
Okay. I mean, that's important to bring up that distinction then, because the phrase NPC is getting tossed around a ton, mostly as an insult for if a person doesn't understand your point or
And mind you, that
I mean,
could
in
be
some ways,
happening from NPC to NPC. Because there's just because, like I put the bell curve of dumb on this side, if this is my left side or not, doesn't mean that that's a left-leaning person. That's not, just a sole side of that. The left people and right people both exist on that. And centrist people exist on that. Everybody exists on that. An NPC could be anything. I think an NPC lives their whole life almost like autonomous. It's just wherever they end up happening to go. They just live. Honestly, it might be the most happiest way to live. I wonder if they're less likely to have a left winger or a right winger, if you think about it, because they're just living. They're waking up, they're doing their thing. They're not really having conversations with themselves. They're just doing.
If ignorance is bliss, you must be orgasmic.
Yeah.
All right.
I really wonder.
I'm ready to wrap.
Should we should end it. All right.
Yeah.
So then that's what all right, guys. If you're watching right now, let us know down below. Do you think an NPC could be left wing, right wing, center wing? What do you think they are? Do you think they are the ignorant bliss eating the steak like the guy in the Matrix? Or can they be on a side? I wonder. I'm really fascinated about this.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious.
Let us know in the comments down below. Smash the plussy.
You gonna close this out too, Fealty?
All right, yeah, yeah. So this is something we might be doing new every week. So next week, Crash is going to do the opening. Crash is going to do the finale. This will be the Fealty finale for this week. I want to thank everyone for stopping by. Thank you for watching. If you watched this far, a little over 3 hours today, it was wild. Golly, after Thanksgiving, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you ate food with your family. I hope you had a great time. Make sure to stop by Flagrant's pages, flagranttriggers.com. Get all that merch. Follow him on social media, Flagrant Triggers. There's going to be links down below. Follow Crash Mondo Jr. on Twitter there. Make sure to check that out. And I hope you enjoy the conversations. Like I said earlier at the start of this, this is something new. It's just 3 guys that are becoming friends that we just recently met not that long ago and gotten to know each other through Chrissy's community. We've been chatting in the chats, and now we're chatting together on video. But this is a process that you are on with us. So please join in on the process. Go in the comment section. Talk with us. Get to know us. Like I said, I'm going to be in that comment section. I'm going to be replying as much as I humanly possibly can. I'm going to be checking it out as often as I can. Click subscribe. Share it. Even if you feel like no one's going to see it on social media, share it. That's you saying, I want to see this again. So let us know you want to see this again. You want to see more and help us grow it, because without you, it won't grow. Right, so that's where I'm going to Flagrant and Crash. Now you guys can talk. I'm going to sit down. Thank you for watching. Click like, oh, and wait, follow me on Twitter too. Fealty
Yeah, don't-
Thoughts. Oh my
come on.
goodness. Golly.
All that whole spiel and is like, but not me. All right, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. We'll be back again next week, and we'll have some new topics for you. Again, check out flagranttriggers.com. I got some really good meme merch on there. Got some upcoming personalities and influencers. Got Chrissy Mayer, X-Ray Girl, if you know her from F&T. Got a firearms company. Got Lila. Got, what was the last one? Me. Yeah. Hey, see, now I did
Hey,
it.
you got my LP affiliate.
You
You're doing
forget
our shirt.
yourself when you
Yeah,
talk about yourself, right?
LP affiliate. That's right. Got some Libertarian Party stuff on there, which I really like their shirt. So yeah.
Yeah, buy our shirts.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, that's it for me. Crash, you got anything?
Crash.
Again, yeah, just follow me on Twitter, Crash Mondo JR, and peace.
Later, guys.